lot of business to be done, and I want to make sure we get an opportunity to get through all of this before 2 o'clock in the morning. I call the meeting to order. This is the Lunenburg Special Town Meeting, November 28th, 2017. I declare that the warrant has been properly served and returned according to the records that are on file in the clerk's office. I also declare that we have a quorum of 50 people, which is the quorum that we require here in Lunenburg. At this time, I would ask you to take off your hats and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please have a seat, but keep your hats off. I want to thank everybody in this town that is a volunteer, whether they're an elected volunteer or an appointed volunteer. I certainly want to thank everybody who is participating in helping run our town. I want to go over some of the ground rules. Please remove your hats, as I just said, whenever you're indoors and in the presence of the American flag, just a sign of respect. Turn off all of your noisemakers. Those are your cell phones, your beepers, and the lights. That would include any verbal noisemakers that are inappropriate for a civil debate. By that I mean, of course, booing, hissing, hooting, hollering, those things. All comments and questions should be addressed to me. I will try to seek an answer from you, for you, on one of the necessary boards or committees, the moving parties, etc. It's not usually appropriate to refer to people by their individual names. Instead, you refer to them as the previous speaker, the moving party, a member of the select board, the finance committee member, etc., and so on. Your comments and questions must be at the microphones. You will see that there are two right in the aisles. There's another one up where the town manager is. If you cannot reach a microphone because of any disability, let somebody near you know, and we'll bring the microphone over to you. I will try to get to everybody who's standing in line. We'll try to get them in order, but if there's something that needs to be taken out of order that I feel somebody from the select board, the finance committee, moving party needs to address, then we will do that. Next to the microphones, you will find that there is a motion form. If you were making a very simple amendment that you want to make to one of the articles, that we can probably do just orally. But if it's got any complication at all, then we would want it to be written out. So hand it in here to Kathy Herrick so that we know we've got exactly what you have said. The moving party will be allowed to make the motion and then to speak first. They'll be given an adequate time to present that article. Thereafter, we would ask that the speakers try to keep it brief so we get out of here before 2 o'clock in the morning, meaning try to keep it down to a couple of minutes. Amendments and articles need to be in that written form, as I said. We have a procedure called moving the question. If a debate has gone on for some period of time, and if somebody stands and says at the microphone, when it's their turn to move the question, that is cutting off the debate. That must be done at the microphone. As I said, it requires a 2/3 vote. It basically ends the discussion. Moving the question is not itself debatable. So if 2/3 of the people at that point in time voted to move the question, then we'd stop debate, we'd vote on it. 2/3 said move the question, then we would actually vote on the question. Every article will be put to a voice vote. I will declare whether it has passed or failed, whether it's a 2/3 or a majority. I will let you know. If 7 people think I've gotten them wrong, not that it's ever happened, you can stand in your seat and say, I doubt it. And if there are 7 people who doubt it, then we will count my cards, and you all have a card, so don't lose it. I didn't get any counters yet, but I will find some of it. It looks like we're going to that. Reconsideration of a vote requires a majority vote. So if there's a vote taken and you think it might have been wrong, maybe people didn't quite get it right, you can ask for reconsideration. We will have a vote on whether or not you reconsider. I won't allow an article to be reconsidered after everybody on that side has left the building, and then an hour later you're asking to reconsider. It has to be done right away. And either side can ask that something be reconsidered, whether you're on the winning side or the losing side. Guests should be seated all the way over on my right, and obviously they're not allowed to vote. If you wanted a guest to speak, you would raise to the microphone, you would ask that I recognize your guest, and then your guest would be allowed to speak. This town conducts its business according to general law, obviously, and we conduct our business according to town meeting time. It's kind of a book that was written just for town meeting procedure. It's similar to Robert's Rules. You can find copies of it at our fine library. So if you wanted to ever do anything before the town, we have 2 citizen petitions this special town meeting. We encourage you, if you have a business you want to bring today, rise to the microphone and let us. I have people coming up to me before the meeting asking how they can procedurally conduct things. We wanted to have an article on the annual town meeting. You can come to us at any point in time. You can find me, you can find somebody on the select board. I will help you get your articles and business before us. We want you to be comfortable here. This calms. We're going to be able to keep our food and our drinks here as long as we're polite and take good care of them in this beautiful building. I want to thank the marching band and Ms. Luck who organized that, for them to come and perform a little bit so you could hear the Lunenburg High School marching band prior to the town meeting. And Ms. Wardell, she's here, but I want to ask Ms. Collins to thank her for us, the school for allowing us to have it. So at this point in time, I think we're ready to begin our business.
Mr. Moderator, could I ask a clarification question before we get started?
Well, we don't do clarification questions.
Of your instruction.
Go ahead, Mr. Passio. Funny. Anytime you ride to the microphone, you need to give us your name and your street address.
Yes,
go ahead.
Is the microphone working?
I don't know.
I believe it is.
People will tell you if they can't hear you.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. I just want to clarify, in my mind, I did hear what you said, but I need to hear it one more time. Any move to amend or move a question, specifically something like Article 1, is going to require a 2/3 vote, or is it just to approve the article because it has a financial... Amendments are required majority. Then the article itself, if it's been amended and requires 2/3, it's 2/3. If it's been amended and requires majority, it's a majority. But the amending yourself takes a majority vote. Got it? And moving the question also.
And just moving the question is actually 2/3. And it's not debated.
Interesting. Okay.
Got it. Good. Everybody ready? Article 1. Mr. Toll.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $199,972 as follows. Transfer to line 3, interest temporary loan for $27,250. Transfer to line 13, reserve fund, the sum of $50,000. Transfer to line 71, facilities and grounds, the sum of $122,722 to amend the amounts voted under Article 8 of the May 6, 2017 annual meeting. Finance town meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Selectmen, your recommendation.
The Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Thank you. Tell us about the article, Mr. Toll.
This article is to utilize our excess levy capacity due to a higher than estimated new growth figure and make any necessary budget adjustments. And the town manager will make a presentation.
Excellent. Ms. Lemieux.
Yes, hello everyone. So this article, and if you could please refer to your orange handout. So this article is to adjust certain line items within the current year's budget, which is fiscal 18. In order to increase the appropriation or transfer funds from an available source to these categories requires town meeting authorization, except under certain circumstances, Chapter 44, Section 33B, year-end transfers. Adjustments to the current fiscal year's budget is possible due to a combination of factors. The chart on this slide shows the changes that affect the incoming revenues received for fiscal 18. The actual state aid the town will receive this year will exceed the estimate used at the May 2017 annual town meeting. Also, the new growth figure certified by the Department of Revenue exceeded the estimated new growth figure used at the annual town meeting. An additional property tax of $27,250 for short-term interest for the middle school, high school project that is excludable debt also adds to the overall revenue adjustments, totaling $303,660. On the expense side of the fiscal 18 budget, cherry sheet offsets, state and county charges, and state assessments increased by a total of $103,660. $688. The net difference between the increase in revenues and the non-appropriated expenses allows for an additional $199,972 to be raised and appropriated. The recommendation on the floor is to appropriate $27,250 for short-term interest on the $2.5 million ban for the middle school, high school project, an additional $50,000 to the reserve fund, and $122,722 to the facilities and grounds account. By increasing the reserve fund by this amount, if not used for unforeseen emergency expenses, these funds will be able to be used towards our end of the year snow and ice deficit. The finance director did a 10-year history on snow and ice, and our deficit averages around $87,000. We cannot increase our snow and ice appropriation without it impacting the minimum of which we will be required to fund that account in future years, but we can transfer unexpended funds to pay for the snow and ice deficit at the annual town meeting. This will also increase our reserve fund in the event of an emergency expense that also has to be approved by the Finance Committee. The recommendation to increase the facilities and grounds by $122,722 is to pay for repairs to town buildings, perform a building condition assessment, and an increase in our annual cleaning costs for town buildings. Here is a breakdown of the identified increases to the facilities and grounds account. After receipt of an indoor air quality report from the Department of Public Health in March of 2017, we began a multi-step process of remediating mold in the basement of the town hall and cleaning bird waste in the attic. In fiscal 17, the firm cleaned the bird waste in the attic, the mold in the basement was remediated, and records in the basement were removed and stored in a trailer or destroyed. The remaining work to be done that was also identified in the indoor air quality report is to clean the HVAC ductwork, balance the HVAC system, clean the records that are currently being stored in a trailer that are contaminated with mold, move all the records from the attic in the town hall to the TC patios for storage due to the excessive weight in the attic, and seal the stone foundation that allows for moisture to enter the basement. The completion of this project is estimated to cost $61,000. The request also includes repair of the gutters at the Ritter building for $2,000 that has caused flooding in the basement, repairing the furnaces at the Eagle House for an additional $5,000, an estimated increase of $15,000 in our annual cleaning costs for town buildings, and $35,000 to perform a building condition assessment for 5 town buildings. I'd like to review the components of the building condition assessment. So what is a building condition assessment? It's an assessment of the condition and effective useful life of the property by technical staff, including architects, envelope assessors, structural engineers, mechanical engineers, and hazardous materials assessors. The consultant will observe site topography, visually assess the site drainage, condition of pavements, sidewalks, fences, signage, exterior lighting, and utility supply to the building. They'll also assess structural integrity, building exterior systems and finishes, condition of the roof system, roof drainage, and among other things. They'll also look at the building interior systems, finishes, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection systems. They'll assess the accessibility according to ADA requirements, as well as requirements under Mass Accessibility Access Board. So which town buildings does this cover? It covers the Ritter building, the town hall, the Brooks, the TC Pasios, and the old primary. It will cost approximately $35,000 for the 5 buildings. And why do we need this done? This information will be used, this will be critical in determining the capital needs for each building and the viability of potential use or reuse. The report that is issued at the end of the assessment will include a capital replacement analysis, which will prioritize repairs that may need immediate attention, and major expenses can then be put into the capital plan. So how is this different from the TAPE study that was done in 2015? The feasibility study performed by TAPE Architects in August 2015 was to examine options for the future of municipal offices. It looked at current space usage and performed a space needs assessment. The end product was a series of options and then identified a preferred option based on the space and cost. The cost for each option used square footage prices for the industry standard for renovations, new construction, removal of hazardous materials, site work, contingency, and soft costs. The TAPE provided a very broad overview of the condition of the 4 municipal buildings, Town Hall, Old Primary, Ritter, and Passios, and explored various scenarios for municipal space needs. The proposed building condition assessment will evaluate the existing conditions of the buildings in much greater detail than the space needs study completed by TAPE. The TAPE study highlighted numerous deficiencies in the buildings, and the building condition assessment will identify all necessary repairs, estimated costs, and a prioritization plan. Just to give you an overview of the 5 buildings, we've had multiple meetings on town facilities. So to give you a description of the old primary school, it was built in 1928. It's been vacant since 2005. Black mold is present. The structural integrity needs to be assessed. It requires abatement of asbestos and potentially other hazardous materials. There's water damage, as you can see in the pictures. Complete replacement of the building systems would be required, and the building envelope is in need of repairs, including roof, windows, and masonry. The Town Hall, which was built in the 1830s, requires HVAC repairs, window replacement. There's water infiltration from the roof and possibly the foundation. It's rot in certain structural members, as you see in the top right-hand picture, and that has affected the floor joists. There's limited file storage. Actually, there's no file storage right now because we're moving the files out of the attic, and we've moved all the files out of the basement. Electrical upgrades are needed, and is not completely ADA accessible. There's no insulation, which means the building envelope is not tight. The Ritter building, which was built around 1910 with a 1963 addition, requires HVAC replacement, window replacement. It's not completely ADA accessible and would require electrical upgrades. The Brooks House, the roof needs to be replaced, HVAC upgrades are needed. The vinyl siding was done in 1998, but the remaining trim in the porch needs significant repairs. It's not an energy efficient building because there's inadequate insulation. Pest control is an issue in the building. There's high moisture content in the basement. It's a fieldstone basement. And the gutters need to be replaced. And the high water table causes the sump pump to be run on a year-round basis. The TC Passios, which was built in 1952, the structure and building envelope are generally in good condition. It does not have air conditioning. It does need fire protection updates. Electrical system needs to be updated. It would require asbestos abatement and accessibility modifications. So next step, in order to plan for all the associated costs, including in maintaining and upkeeping our buildings, a building condition assessment is a vital component in this process. This process will include professional services of engineers, architects, building envelope assessors, and hazardous materials assessors to identify the repairs and upgrades needed that will cost a significant amount of money and which is not currently included in the town's capital plan. That's all I have.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Questions?
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. I have a couple of specific questions about the presentation. The subtotal amount for the town hall repairs is $61,000. How much have we already spent remediating the issues there in that building?
With removal of the bird waste and remediation of the mold in the basement, and the air testing, quality tests that we had to have done before and after the mold remediation. We've spent approximately $59,000.
And that's in addition to this 61.
Correct.
Ms. Moderator, if you indulge me, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Thank you. The Ritter building in item number 2 under line 71. There has been $20,000 sitting in a capital account since FY15 for the HVAC system in that building. I'm wondering why we need an additional $2,000 to repair the systems in that building if we've got $20,000 that's already been sitting there for a number of years unspent. I think I'll probably put both amounts in at this point because there is item number 3 also has the same situation.
Before you go, can you put that chart back up so that we, okay. Thank you. Anticipated my efforts. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Pastor.
Okay, item number 3, Eagle House heating system. Also FY15, we approved $17,500, which to date has not been spent. Why do we need an additional $5,000?
I can answer that, Mr. Moderator.
Please.
Okay. So the 2000 for the Ritter building is for gutter replacement on a section of the building that's causing flooding in the basement of the Ritter building. So separate than the capital request for the HVAC repairs. And secondly, the Eagle House heating system, there was a capital article. So this is in addition to that because the estimates so far would exceed the capital appropriation made in the previous fiscal year.
I appreciate that clarification. I just feel that the voters should be aware that we have already appropriated money a number of years ago that has not been spent.
Thank you, Mr. Pastor. Sir.
Good evening, and I must confess this is my first time, and I'm able to simplify things for us.
But before you simplify it, tell us who you are and where you live.
I live on Tilton Avenue. My name is Bob Rackle.
Thank you, Bob.
The first 6 articles of the proposal you're asking for money, and 4 of them we don't even know how much we're asking for, according to the prospectus that was sent out. Article 10, though, talks about appropriating property for a tax levy. Why don't we take it, instead of putting it into conservation, sell the property to a developer, a new homeowner, and thereby increase our tax base? Article 11 wants to know about putting a 10-year moratorium on the buildings you're trying to repair. And as the previous speaker pointed out, these buildings have needed repair for decades, not the last 10 years, or for more than the last 10 years. And we haven't fixed them yet. Let's sell them, which is another one of the proposals in here, and clear the money for other issues that we have in this town. So instead of asking for all this money up front, let's take and use the resources that we have at the back end, sell the property to a developer, increase our tax base so we have continuing flow of income into the city, into the town, to provide for, I don't know why we need a director of beaches. I think we've only got 2. And I don't know what pay grade 10 is, but that's obviously more than grade 1 for the lifeguard. The lifeguard has a greater responsibility than the director of beaches. So let's use the revenue that we can from the resources we currently have to take care of any future issues with some of these buildings. I recognize that the town hall is 100+ years old, and I'm a great person of history. I love tradition. So let's sell Passio. Let's sell the old elementary, and use all of that then to reshore up the town hall.
Thank you. I guess you're still up, Mr. Passios.
Yes, sir. I think it's time.
It's time.
I move to amend Article 1 as follows. Delete Line number 13, increase to snow and ice removal completely. In its place, I move to transfer $50,000 into the special
All right,
purpose.
so why don't you go real slow so that the people that crunch numbers can get everything that you're talking about?
Okay. In its place, I move to transfer $50,000, which was freed up by deleting line 13 into the special purpose stabilization fund created by Article 10 of the May 6, 2016 annual town meeting. I further move to delete item number 4 under line 71 and to increase item number 5, building condition assessment, by $15,000 for a new total of $50,000, and to include the senior center and the Turkey Hill elementary buildings to the list of buildings to be evaluated.
Ah, there's a second. Okay. So now we have a motion to amend Article 1 that has been seconded. Do people need him to repeat what he's talking about with numbers, where they're coming from? I probably do. So slowly, Mr. Passios, tell people what you're, tell us globally what you're trying to accomplish, and then break it down where it's coming from. Could you do it that way?
I'll try my best. Line 13 proposes to move $50,000 into an account to supposedly supplement ice and snow and ice removal. The history of that account, as long as I've been coming to town meetings, which has been a very long time before I was even old enough to vote, has always been underfunded. We are allowed to run that account in a deficit because it's public safety, and so we do whatever we have to keep the roads safe for ice and snow removal. Traditionally, and I realize that we may not have this every year, but for many years in the recent past, we've had a huge free cash number at the end of every fiscal year. This year to the tune of approximately $800,000 that has been certified by the state. We're in a great position right now. We have new growth. We have lots of revenues to work with that we have not tapped at this point, as well as unused capital money and money left over in various articles over probably. I have not been able to ascertain yet how much money is left over in articles. So that's my premise for removing the funding for the ice and snow removal and moving that to the special stabilization fund in hopes that we can start building a bank to start taking care of these buildings that we have neglected for so many years. Shame on us for not putting that money into these buildings. That's why they're in this condition. That's why we needed to tear down a high school and build a $72 million building, because we let that building fall down around us. We weren't willing to spend the money to maintain it. The second section of my motion.
Right, so it's two parts, right? The
Yes,
first
sir.
one is that $50,000 you want to move into a special stabilization fund, right?
Correct.
Okay. The second part of what you're proposing is what?
The second section is to eliminate the item number 5, the $15,000 for increased cost of cleaning of buildings. Again, that can easily be absorbed within the budget with leftover free cash at the end of the year with a simple transfer, I believe, by the Finance Committee, or it can be balanced out one way or another, even if it has to come to town meeting. And move that $15,000 to, let's see if I can mess this up. It's take the $15,000 out of item number 4 and move it to item number 5 to supplement that amount and add 2 more buildings to the list of buildings that will be assessed. Senior Center for 1 and Turkey Hill Middle School, and I'd like to speak to the Turkey Hill Middle School especially.
All right, so what you printed here that you gave to your clerk
Yep.
says the Turkey Hill Elementary Building.
Elementary building, excuse me.
Okay,
Yes, that is correct.
okay.
We're headed down a path of what I describe as neglect with Turkey Hill. We already know, or at least it's widely known, it may not be advertised widely, but we are hemorrhaging energy cost from that building because we have not done any upgrades on the envelope. I'm told, I have not seen them myself, but I'm told there's gaps in the windows. There's all kinds of envelope issues that could easily now be taken care of and most likely pay for themselves in energy savings over the next 10 to 15 years that we hope to keep that building functional, instead of letting it fall down around us and needing to spend a huge amount of money again to build a new building and tear a building down. We're going to run into the same scenario at, quote, end quote, the end of life for Turkey Hill if we don't start spending some money on doing some of these simple envelope and capital improvements. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, point of order.
Steve yourself.
I note the various, excluding the $50,000, changing it from reserve fund to the special stabilization fund. But I note that the proposal that the previous speaker talked about are moving items around within line 71, and I think the motion as a whole is just changing line 71. I'm not sure if town meeting has the authority to change within the line item that's voted.
Well, let's introduce town council. Adam Costa is our new town council from me, Tolman and Costa. And there's a question about changing Article 71. Line item 71.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So, my understanding of the question.
Okay, so you got it. There you go. You got to keep it down.
Ah, there you go. Okay. Beginner's luck, or the opposite of beginner's luck. So thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I believe the question is whether there can be a modification. I'm looking specifically at line 71. I believe that the proposal, the amendment that is on the floor is to modify specifically line 4 within line 71 and to increase line item 5 by the $15,000. Is that correct?
Stay at the microphone.
Now, my proposal eliminates line number 13 and replaces it with the proposal to put it into special purpose account. The same amount of money, just replaces that line with the wording that I stated. Same thing with item number 4. 4 is eliminated. That dollar amount is added to number 5, and 2 buildings are added to the study.
So I believe the specific question that was asked by the selectmen is whether there could be specific modifications made within line 71. I don't find that to be out of order. I defer to the moderator as to whether he would rule otherwise, but I do believe that the specifics within the motion can be adjusted, even though the ultimate amount of $122,722 that was part of the motion that was made will remain the same.
Any other questions for Mr. Passios about the amendment? So the way that it works is an amendment on the floor. You vote on the amendment first. That's an up and down majority vote. And if it passes, then it's a part of the new Article 1. If it's defeated, we go back to debating or discussing Article 1.
Mr. Moderator, I believe, I question whether that transferring to the special stabilization fund within the original scope of the article.
I'm going to look at that. I think it's in order. I think you can do this. No problem. Okay. Mr. McQuaid.
I agree with
what Mr. Passios is trying to accomplish here. I do, however, think it's the wrong way to go about it. As chairman of the Capital Planning Committee, I have to take a little bit of exception with the statement that we're in good financial shape. A lot of our money comes from that free cash dollar amount, and despite that seeming high at $800,000, our capital request on a yearly basis nearly double that, and that's projected to continue out 15 years. And to say that we've neglected these buildings because we want to is be false. We neglect them because we don't have the money to take care of them correctly. So I agree with the statements that we need to do a better job taking care of the buildings. We need to do a better job of identifying the issues with the buildings. But I think that moving the money around this way is not the way to go about it.
Thank you. Ms. Lemieux.
I'd like to add to that as well. To reiterate what Selectman McQuaid said, that I think by the presentation so far, you can see that there's a clear demonstration of the needs of our buildings. And it would be worthwhile to do an assessment of those other buildings, which we hope to do at the annual town meeting or thereafter. The cleaning costs for the town buildings, that's an actual cost that the town will have to pay this year. So to reduce that, we will not have enough funding to pay for that, the cleaning costs for the town buildings.
Thank you. Sir, I'll get back to you. I'll give you the final word. Go ahead.
Oh, Dave McDonald, Island Road, Lunenburg. I have to agree with Dave Passios as far as the school, as far as the snow removal. He's correct. We never had enough money to pay for the snow removal. I want to thank the town manager for putting that into the budget, because every year we don't have enough money to pay for the snow removal in this town. I would like to get the recommendation from the Finance Committee on that proposal, if I could.
We have a split on the proposal. We're recommending no, 3-2.
What was the vote?
3-2.
3-2 against.
3-2 against.
3-2 against. Thank you. Mr. Passios, last word from you.
Thank you very much. Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street, just to follow procedure. I hear you about the snow and ice removal account. We've had a deficit in it probably every single year for, I can't even tell you how many years. But when we close out each year, we've been able to cover that without adding additional money mid-term on a fiscal year. The same with the cleaning budget. That can be supplemented when the budget goes to zero, or that line item goes to zero, and can also be covered by a transfer, I believe. Our annual budget yielding 800,000 plus in excess appropriations tells me that our budget is not a tight, as we used to call it a couple of years ago, bare bones budget. We have close to $1 million in available funds right at the moment between new growth, leftover money in capital, and previous articles that have leftover money in them, and free cash. I don't see any problem covering those two line items with a closeout at the end of the fiscal year.
Mr. Moderator?
Sir.
Doug McQuaid, 30 Cushing Lane. And my point is, I love the way he says we got $800,000 in free money sitting around. But it seems to me that, if I understand the selectmen correctly, we got about $1.6 million in capital expenditures that would need to be thought about. So how in the world do I have free cash when I got a ton of bills? Buildings to take care of, equipment to be replaced, with the police department, with the highway department. We don't have free cash. We're sitting on that $800,000, using it efficiently as possible, I would hope, by the Finance Committee. to face some of those $1.6 million of future expenditures. And to turn around and say that, oh yeah, at the end of the year, when you have to run out of your money cleaning the buildings, oh, what the hell, we can just, what the heck? Oh! You gotta start thinking, I don't know about you, but in my household, when I look at my budget, twice a month, I start looking at stuff and I set money aside. The money I have set aside, that's not free cash that I can go on a vacation with. That's money that I'm going to turn around and sit and take care of the car when that goes down the toilet. Or it's going to take care of the house when it needs a new roof. Or the heating system. So, to play around and say that at the end of the year, oh heck, we're a town that's going to have bucks in our pocket. I don't think that's a correct statement to make.
Thank you. This is an excellent time for me to tell you that we have a talent bank form. So when you're interested in all these processes, you want to get your voice heard. You want to do it, okay? It's available online for those of you that are techies. I promised Mrs. Bertram she could have another word. Or she could have a word.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I appreciate the sentiment behind the amendment that's proposed. However, I have a concern regarding the $15,000 for cleaning. This is a known cost. You can transfer money for unanticipated expenditures, but you can't just transfer money within the budget without a compelling and unforeseen reason. And to say that we can take it from free cash, that's not correct. We can't. So this is a known cost and an escalation in cost that we're facing and that we have to cover. So we're talking about taking care of our buildings. Well, cleaning them is a pretty crucial component of that. So I would propose an amendment to the prior amendment, which would take $15,000 from the $50,000 proposed for the snow removal overage. And rather than putting the entire 50 into the special purpose stabilization, I would propose to put 35,000 into the special purpose stabilization and leave the remaining $15,000 for the cleaning costs.
Just so I get this, and please write it down for Ms. Herrick. You want to put 15 into what?
Excuse me, I want to leave, all right, hold on, I'm going to check with my colleague. Rather than putting it in the reserve fund, I'm going to put it in line 71.
35 into special stabilization. Correct. And 15 into?
Line 71.
Okay. And there was a second to that. Now, procedurally, sometimes it's easier to see if the First Amendment person and the second would accept that amendment. You don't have to. Or we can vote on that amendment, then your amendment, then the article, and get home by maybe 3 o'clock. You could accept her proposal, or could say, no, I want to go forward on mine.
Let me put it to you this way. Grudgingly, I will accept that amendment.
You'll accept it. Will the second accept it as well? Yes. Good. Okay. So now the amendment that's before the floor is just the one amendment. It's the amendment Mrs. Bertram has just proposed, which I hope you got. 35,000 from that 50 snow removal, 35 into stabilization, and 15 into line item 71. Correct? All right, moving right along. Young lady.
There's still one more move in my motion.
There's a second part to your motion about studying the buildings. Hold on. Mrs. Bertram, he had 2 parts to his. You only made an amendment to one.
Yes, I concurred with the prior amendment to study the additional buildings, yes.
Have the additional buildings.
Yes.
And the second accepts that as well.
Yes.
Okay, good. We're getting there. 3 o'clock is coming fast. Go ahead.
Faith Beal, 54 Riley Road. I'd like to move the question, and I'm concerned. I also want to talk to you as the moderator. I'm concerned we've spent 45 minutes and we're just on Article 1. And there must be a way to limit discussion on the articles, or?
The way to do it is to move the question. So
Well, that's what I'm doing.
There you go.
And I tried to do it before her amendment, but
Well,
anyway,
didn't
what's
happen.
done is done. Can we please vote?
Is there a second to moving the question? Ah, there is. That's not debatable. Okay, that's a majority, two-thirds vote on whether or not we should move the question, which simply means we're going to have a vote on the amendment, right? You're not voting on the article at the moment, you're voting on the amendment first. So, all in favor of cutting off debate, so to speak, signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Definitely two-thirds. Okay, so now the amendment is on the floor, Mrs. Bertram's amendment with Mr. Ebersol's second. Sir, the amendment. To Article 1.
To the amendment, right.
Got it.
So, just 2 points on the amendment as it currently exists. Number one, just the point that taking the money out of snow removal does nothing but just kick the can down the line, and you pay for it next year. So I don't know what that accomplishes, but more importantly, I want to bring back Selectman Ebersol's point, because although Town Council has said it's up to the moderator, I would want to point out that traditionally our budget items are done by line number, not what's in the line number, because that gives a very dangerous precedent that town meeting could reach down in any line number and adjust department line items at will. And that has not been done. We've always done amendments to budgets on the line items themselves. So moving things around inside of that was not part of the original article, and I would highly recommend again setting that precedent.
What we should do and what we can do are sometimes different. Okay, so the amendment, young lady, on the amendment.
Susan Doherty, 10 Harbor Terrace. I'm the director at the Eagle House Senior Center. Number 3, I just want to clarify that we have 3 furnaces down right now. It's getting cold. The elderly are there. They need to be replaced. I thought it was going to be a higher number than that. I think $5,000 is pretty reasonable for the 3 furnaces. But I have that large function room right now. No heat whatsoever in it. So just to clarify that.
Thank you. And you know, procedurally, somebody should have stood up and told me. We've moved the question. We shouldn't be debating it, right? Thank you. All right. So we moved the question on the amendment as proposed by Mrs. Bertram. Everybody got it? Delete $50,000, put 30 from snow, put 35 into destabilization, the special stabilization, and 15 into line item 71. That's what we're voting on. All those in favor, please? Correct? 71. Right, that's what I said. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The amendment is defeated.
I doubt it.
Well, then stand up when you say that. Thank you, Mr. Pastor.
I doubt that.
Are there 7 people who don't think by a majority vote that was not defeated? 1, 2, you got to stand. I know it's hard. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so now I need to get some counters. Boy, you people love to come to meetings and talk all night. God, I love it. I have a friend who's a moderator in Westminster. They meet on Tuesday nights. They get all their business done in 2 hours. We can't get through the first article in 2 hours. You're going to count in the middle, and you're going to count in the middle. And over here, Kathy's going to count, because I know Kathy, and Mrs. Jones was a teacher, so she can count, okay? Well, it was 2nd grade, but you know you can count in the 2nd grade. My granddaughter's 3 and can kind of more or less count, okay? You're going to count over this side, JP, and you're going to count over this side, okay? All right, so those are my counters. You're going to count by card, okay? It's a majority vote on the amendment, okay? So, all those in favor of the amendment to the article, please hold up your card. JP, your counter and your partner, you guys come up front, count together so you get it right, and you're going to count the select board and the finance committee. hold up nice and high. You got the whole section, your whole side. I know it's a high number, JP. Do your best. When you're done counting, counters, you can come to one of the microphones in the front and tell us what your number is. And you got to agree, counters, or start again and do it again. A lot of people here, huh? This side, JP, your side, okay? Some people count the middle, one side. Was I not clear? Your side, JP, with your partner, you guys count the front and the back. And the stage. My counter's in the middle. Have you finished? Counter's in the middle. What do you got in favor?
We got 25.
25 in favor on the middle. You counted the top section and the top section. Got to count both sections. They're voting. Come on. How many?
44.
44. Okay, we got it. Ms. Reinhardt and Ms. Jones. Up and down, right? The whole section.
Yes, sir. 27.
27. 27.
37. 37.
How many?
Mr. Moderator, 37.
37. Thank
Sorry.
you, Mrs. Jones. I did graduate the second grade. 37. Okay. While they're counting, not to screw up their numbers, but 286 people checked in to vote.
Yeah, it was where it happened. What happened?
It's okay. And did you count the stage and the finance committee? Even though I said count the stage. So add in that number. Make sure the two of you agree. Yeah? Excellent.
60.
60. All right. So that was the number of people in favor. All those opposed to the article, please raise your card. Counters, you keep going. To the amendment, correct. Just to the amendment. Mrs. Bertram's amendment. Simple majority. Simple majority.
We have 35.
35 on the side. Mr. Pacenti on my right. Everybody else is left. Ms. Reinhardt.
31.
31. My left. 31.
We got 52 in the center.
52 in the center. Okay, 141 in favor of the amendment, 118 against the amendment. You were correct, Mr. Passios. It is defeated. Excuse me, it is passed, sorry. Now I'm getting, okay. The amendment, just the amendment. Okay, now Article 1 is before you with that amendment. Got it? Good, okay. Any more debate? Because we got to get home sometime tonight. Okay, ready to vote? All those in favor of Article 1, which is a 2/3 vote, please, as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes by 2/3, and I so declare it. Let us try to get to Article 2. Wow! Record time. Mr. Ebersol.
I move that the town vote to transfer from Article 8 of the May 6, 2017 annual town meeting, line 13A, Salary Reserve Fund, the sum of $13,884.22 to fund the first year of the FY18 to FY20 Lunenburg Professional Firefighters PFFM Local 4358A Collective Bargaining Agreement dated July 1, 2017 to June 30, 2020.
Is there a second? Select your recommendation.
Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Tell us about the article, Mr. Ebersol.
This article is to fund the first year of the firefighters union agreement for FY 2018. The town manager to answer any questions, if any.
But there aren't any. All those in favor of Article 2, majority vote, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 3, Municipal Employees Agreement. Ms. Luck.
I move that the town vote to transfer from Article 8 of the 5/6/17 annual town meeting, line 13A, Salary Reserve Fund, the sum of $13,746.45 to fund the first year of the FY18 through FY20 Municipal Employee AFSCME Council 93 Collective Bargaining Agreement dated July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2020.
Is there a second? Selectmen, your recommendation.
Board of Selectmen recommend approval with one abstention.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Thank you. Seeing no one at the microphone, I think we're ready to vote on this. Any questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 4, Design of Town Offices at TCP. Mrs. Bertram.
I move that the town vote to transfer the unexpended balance of $10,000 from Article 10 of the May 7th, 2016 annual town meeting to fund a market analysis of the municipal buildings, to fund architectural and engineering services for the conceptual design and construction cost estimate for the construction of municipal offices at the TC Passios building.
Is there a second? Selectmen, your recommendation.
The Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Thank you. What about this, Mrs. Bertram?
This article, as it states, is to fund the conceptual design and construction cost estimates for moving town offices to TCP, and I would defer to the town manager for a presentation.
Well, let's see what she's got to say.
Like Selectman Bertram said, this article is to hire an architectural firm to provide architectural and engineering services to review the existing architectural conditions and provide a conceptual design and prepare a construction cost estimate. The recommendation before you is to transfer unexpended money from a vote from May 7, 2016 annual town meeting, Article 10 of $10,000, which was voted to perform a market analysis of the municipal buildings, which was never used to pay for this cost of the conceptual design. So just to go over the process of design and construction, this request is a necessary step in the process to consolidate town offices currently located at the Town Hall, Ritter Building, along with certain school central offices at the TC Passios. This is part of the planning stage. The first step in the process was completed through the TAPE study. The TAPE was a feasibility study that looked at our existing building resources, current available space, space needs for offices, and identified the preferred property to relocate town offices. The preferred option took into consideration space needs, building design, and cost for renovation. The next step in the planning process is to fine-tune the necessary space needs and create a conceptual design and possible options of the TC patios. The end product will be an updated conceptual design and current construction costs using industry standards. Other processes for construction are further design, which would be preparation of schematic design, design development, specifications, updated project cost estimates. Then it would be put out to bid, which is preparation of bid documents, and ultimately put out to bid when bids received. After it's awarded, the process is contract administration, which is services to oversee the project and the budget of that project. These stages would require another town meeting vote for funding. So what is included in this conceptual design for services? It would verify existing architectural conditions and provide electronic floor plan drawings of existing architectural conditions, provide in-depth code compliance report for alterations level 3 with a change in occupancy classification for the state building code, initial conceptual design floor plan with options for consideration for the town, prepare conceptual design floor plan with revisions from comments from the town, and the consultant would meet with the town until a consensus is reached on use of the space in the TC patios. There would be a presentation of the conceptual design floor plan drawing and a written description of the scope of work with construction cost estimates. The construction cost estimates is based on the cost per square foot of similar projects and includes design contingencies for factors to be determined in later stages of design. So an important vote that took place in the past was May 5th of 2016, the annual town meeting, Article 31. And at that meeting, it was voted with a 2/3 vote to transfer the care, custody, and control of the land and/or building known as the TC patios from the school committee to the Board of Selectmen for general municipal purposes, including but not limited to the development of a town hall. That was the specific vote. I would conclude with recapping the reasons the Board of Selectmen have identified TC patios as their preferred option as the building to relocate town offices to. It's the newest and largest of the existing town-owned buildings. There's a single floor plan, which is generally accessible and would not require an elevator, which adds approximately $1 million to the overall cost of a project. The structure and building envelope are in good condition, and this would further foster synergies between municipal and school operations and consolidate town offices under one roof, which improves communication and is a one-stop for residents, visitors, and businesses needing to go to town hall. Building systems are generally in good condition. Parking options are available. There are no dedicated parking spaces at the town hall. It's also on-street parking. We do not own the parking lot behind the building. And there's only approximately 11 spaces at the Ritter building. It provides the possibility of rental space for space that will not be utilized by town and school offices, and the possibility of community use space. And that's my presentation for this article.
Is this on?
It is.
Rebecca Lantry, 251 West Street, Lunenburg. I think this is good money after bad. I don't think there's a total consensus yet about moving to this TC patios location because it means abandonment of the town center. And that means the total destruction of the town center as we know it now. That there will be no control over the municipal land that we now currently own, and that the TC patios, unfortunately, is going to be needed. Because if you look around at the amount of development that has been allowed by our planning board, not as single-family homes, but as apartments in this area, we are not meeting the capacity even with the new schools that we have brought online. Would you believe that this new high school and middle school are too small already? Isn't that amazing? But it's happening, and we're not going to lose it in the TC patios. If we lose that space for school, we're going to be in trouble again. So I think this is my opinion. I don't think this is a wise move.
My question to the town manager goes back.
Since we're recording, give us your name every time.
Okay. Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. My question goes back partially to Article 1. I'm wondering how much of that line number is going to be spent out of the total number, because it was not broken down per building as to how much that study was going to cost. And then we're adding an additional 10,000. Additionally, I'd like to know how much overlap there will be between these two studies of information.
Something you can address, Ms. Lanier?
Each of the buildings were broken down between 4,000 and 9,000, and I don't remember off the top of my head what the Passios is, probably tending towards the 9,000. It's a larger building.
Mr. Moderator, if I might try to answer that question a little bit. I think the first article talked about the assessment of the building structures, and it included with the amendment several of town-owned buildings. This particular article talks to the requirements to accommodate a municipal office building in the Passios, so it's separate to that regard. There'll be a piece of the First Amendment that talks about the structure and what's required, but it was, as a result of Building Reuse Committee studies and the TAP-A study, it was the building that met all of the requirements at what we believed was the best cost, and this is a way to confirm the actual cost to do that development.
Okay. Sir.
Mr. Moderator, Mike Bankin, 26 Corporate Circle. I'm in support of this article. I believe it makes sense to consolidate town offices for the sake of doing business with the town. Currently, the offices are inadequate. We can see from the presentation on Article 1 that the condition of the existing town hall is questionable and would require significant funds just to keep the body and soul together. And we will, whether we're there or not as town hall, we'll need to face that. And so moving town hall is not going to change that. What will change is we'll have a truly functioning town hall. I also want to correct a previous speaker on some factual things. This school is not over capacity. It's currently was designed to accommodate at least 100 more students, and it is not anywhere near that. So no, this building is not already meeting its capacity. So I just wanted to make that correction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Whoa, sorry. Hi. I'm ready. Katie Adams from Williams Drive. I think we should vote no on Article 4 because it's funding a path that I don't feel like the community has really weighed in on yet. This sets the stage for completely abandoning our municipal identity in town center because we're leaving nothing there. And so I think it's really important to vote no on Article 4 so that we can protect the town center and that we're a little bit cart before the horse here. We're funding a direction that I'm not sure the community supports. Thank you.
Sir.
Dave McDonald, Island Road, Lunenburg. It's funny. People look at the building and say, you need a plan. Well, now you have the chicken and egg. We're asking for money to come up with a plan to bring it to the town. So if we don't appropriate the money, you don't have a plan. And in the meantime, the building rots. So again, I'm in favor of voting yes, because we got to start moving this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McQuaid?
I need to clarify that this is not a final move that we're going to move town offices to the TC Passios. It's to identify the costs associated with moving the offices to the TC Passios so we can continue to have this conversation about the town center and continue to talk about a community about what's best for us and best for the center and best for the historic buildings. But this is an important step in understanding the costs associated with moving those offices. It's not a final vote that we're moving the offices.
Thank you. Sir.
Michael Jeffries of 1170 Massachusetts Avenue. I'm also a member of the Lunenburg Planning Board. So I stand for a couple of reasons. The first is to clarify a previous comment. The Planning Board, unfortunately, does not have approval authority over most of the homes that are actually built in this town. That most of our authority resides in the subdivision of land as well as things that are special permits. Anything that is allowed that would get a permit by the building inspector does not come before us. So most of the residents that you see propping up in town are not issues that actually come before the Lunenburg Planning Board, but rather are allowed by the bylaws of this town. But I stand to support this. I think it's a necessary step in the right direction for us to evaluate moving into our newest and most functional building, consolidating our offices, making them more handicap accessible for people, more compliant. You know, one of the things that, I'm a property manager, and one of the things that really stood out to me in Town Hall, as well as in the Ritter building, is number one, for residents coming here, they don't really know which building to go to. You know, it's not clear that the building departments are across the street, and on the other side of the street are other offices. I think the consolidation makes this, you know, really a viable option. That's number one. And the second thing I want to highlight is that our current town hall and Ritter building are not up to code when it comes to fire. If you light a match next to town hall and the building's going up, and there's really minimal infrastructure in place to prevent that. I think that we have a functioning building in town, which is the T.C. Passios building, and it seems to make the most sense, looking at what other communities are doing, to consolidate, to look into the plan of consolidating into one building and see if this is the best way to go. I would like to argue that the points about abandoning our town center, I'm not sure that there's anyone in this room who thinks it's a great idea to abandon the buildings that we currently own. I think that as part of the discussion, we need to look at how to properly use them. And perhaps it's in our best interest to consolidate the T.C. Passios, and then also as part of that package later in the process, to figure out a good plan for what we're going to do with the Ritter building as well as Town Hall to make sure that they are accessible for members of the community. That's my feedback. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Carol Hatch, 41 Hilltop Lane. I'd like to mention that I grew up in the center of town, 3 Lancaster Ave, where the Dragonfly Cafe is now. And when people initially talked about moving the municipal offices, my sort of, I don't know the right word for it, but just my feelings were, no, we can't abandon the middle of the town. You know, my house has been empty and there's never any businesses in here. And then I thought about it more and I realized there's no businesses that stay there because it's one of the only businesses. And I don't think that just keeping the municipal offices where they are is going to breathe any life into the center of town. There has not been life in the center of town for a very long time. So I am in support of this study.
Mrs. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. A couple of things I want to point out, as another selectman just mentioned. This does not mean that we're moving. This is going to give us the data that we need to determine the cost of moving. And then ultimately, whether or not that move happens is up to this body and the citizens of this community. But we need the data and the information to make an informed decision. As to the process of what we do with Town Center and with our municipal buildings, the selectmen welcome the input of citizens, and we actually have scheduled 2 dates that I want to let you know about. One is December 2nd, which is Saturday, and there will be a walkthrough of all of the buildings, and if you're interested in attending, it will be at 10 a.m., meet at the Town Hall. And the second is a charrette to be held on December 7th, at 7 p.m. to talk about the town center and what people want to see in the town center. It is not up to the select board, it will be up to the citizens. But in order to present a plan for what we're going to do, we need to collect the data. And this is a data point that we need to decide whether or not to move forward.
You're up.
Rhonda Licio, 181 Reservoir Road. I do not support Article 4. I actually used to support the concept of consolidating buildings until I saw the TAFE study, which I was looking to downsize, not expand. I was looking to consolidate so that we're having a cost savings so we can afford things like fire trucks that we're desperately in need of. And also, I would like to point out, the building assessment results would be crucial to my thought process as to whether I would want to move forward with the design. because it's going to look at the Eagle House, which may turn out to also, it could be an opportunity to consolidate that building in as well. So I just don't feel like we have the data. And I also think that I would like to know how many other towns have done this, put their municipal offices on an active school campus. I think that would be something, if the town wants to do this, you need to make the case. You need to show me what it's going to, how it works in other communities. And I also feel like I don't necessarily believe that the space asked for in the TAPE study was completely justified. I'd like to know how much space are each of those departments, how it was broken down. How much space are they occupying right now? And how do you justify getting from A to the B that we came up to, which is like over doubling the size of municipal space? And the town has not made that case, so I do not support this article.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mina Schulten. I live at 3 Oak Avenue, and I didn't think I was going to talk today, but this issue hasn't come up yet, and I think someone needs to really speak to it. It's the issue of universal accessibility of our town offices and the place where we do our town business. It's so important that everybody of all types and abilities get the opportunity to engage in their town government and participate in the legislative process in a way that imbues them with respect and is providing an open invitation for them to do so. So looking at the buildings, I think that the TC Passios building, being a one-floor building, is definitely the best option for that. And I, for one, really want to see a design concept that is inclusive in that way. Thanks.
Thank you. We just need to hear longer.
Hi, Shore, Katie Adams from Williams Drive. And I just wanted to talk first about the accessibility. When looking at a path forward, the TAPE looked at so many different options, and there was one called TAPE Option 2, and that puts a similar amount of money into Town Hall and into the Ritter Building. And I think with any path forward in any building, accessibility would be something that would be done to those buildings. And I would really encourage that. So I don't think accessibility is something we can't accomplish in any buildings. All of our new schools have elevators to deal with multiple levels. In terms of voting no on Article 4, I think it's, again, premature with cart before the horse. And also, I feel like we're talking about TC Passios like it's in good condition. And for people who aren't familiar with it, it is currently not in good condition. And just as other buildings don't meet fire codes, TC Passios certainly isn't up to date with things like, being up to code on fire. So we're really dealing with a whole pile of buildings that need a lot of work, and one certainly shouldn't be looked at as cheaper than another. So the TAPE that studied all these said that for approximately, and this is in 2015, for approximately $5 million, we can upgrade one wing of the TC Passios School, 20,000 square feet. So for $5 million, we would get one wing of a building upgraded. Same study, $7.5 million. Gives us an approximately $7.5 million TAPE Option 2, I have it with me. It gives us a renovation to, can you please stop interrupting me?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that, sorry.
Okay, so sorry, TAPE Option 2 gives $7.5 million, and it provides a renovation to the Ritter Building with a possible addition if necessary and a total restoration of our town hall. So for a very similar amount of money, there's a path available where we can retain town hall and do all the necessary improvements to accomplish many of these things. And so my main question or main reason for coming up here is, this is saying why the TC Passios is the Board of Selectmen's preferred option. If they identify this as a preferred option, they're leaving out a really important piece of the puzzle that we need to know. If this is their preferred option, how do they identify with the use of all the buildings that become vacant? And the answer is, there's a plan really to sell land in the center of town to a private developer. And I know 3 of the 5 selectmen here have quoted in support of selling off the space to private developers. So there's a lot more to this. I think if we vote yes, we're supporting the abandonment of town center. If we vote no, we say we want to retain Lunenburg's town center as a part of who we've been for almost 300 years.
Sir. We're not going to get into clapping and booing and hissing and all that stuff. We're going to listen and we're going to speak.
I vote we move the question, Mr. Moderator.
Move the question. Is there a second? That was going to be you. I knew you were going to do that. You're going to get a lot of friends around here. Okay, we're not going to debate it anymore. The question is, shall we end debate now? If that's a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of ending debate, signify by saying aye. Aye. Nice. All those opposed to that and want to keep debating, say no. No. Good. 2/3 of the people want to end debate, so we're ending debate. So the article is now before you. It is article number 4, conceptual design for TC Passios. It's a majority vote. All those in favor of article 4, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. I believe a majority have passed article 4. It's a majority vote.
Mr. Moderator, point of order.
Time out. Thank you. Town Council, am I incorrect? Is this a majority vote?
It's a majority vote because it's a transfer, not a raise and appropriation.
Majority vote because it's a transfer. Thank you. Majority have spoken. I declare Article 4 has passed. I don't see 7 people saying no, so we are moving on to Article 5.
It says it requires 2/3 vote?
I don't know what it says there. The warrant may have said several languages. The motion says transfer. Because it's a transfer, it's a majority vote. The warrant article often will have 2 and 3, appropriate, other language about where the money's going to come from. This one, as moved, says transfer, majority vote. Moving on to Article 5. Mr. Letarte, maybe. Thank you. Stand right up, Mr. Letarte. Why don't you go down to the microphone where the town manager is? Take center stage. This is a citizen's petition, and we encourage you to join into all these committees, speak your voice, come to the meetings, and form citizen petitions. Mr. Letarte. Okay. When you finish speaking, don't turn the microphone.
Okay, whoa.
Whoa, give us your name and your address.
Chris Letarte, 283 Whalen Road. So I move the town vote to transfer $25,000 from free cash to supplement the amount voted under Article... Did I lose it? No, there it is. To supplement the amount voted under Article 7 of the 2017 annual town meeting on May 6, 2017, under the capital planning report, which provided $12,000 to be used for the playground project at Wallace Park, or take any other action relative thereto.
Okay. No other action as. Leave that up, okay? That's your article. $25,000 to supplement $12,000 of the capital plan to improve the playground in Wallace Park. And it's been seconded, okay? Speak to the article.
I stand in front of you all on a podium that's moving. I stand in front of you all tonight to ask for your vote to help us build a playground at Wallace Park. Wallace is a town park that has seen better days. In 1912 or thereabout, the park commissioners purchased the land so that the Whalen district could have a playground. There was a group called the Whalen Recreation Association that, much like our Friends of Wallace Park group, was formed by friends and neighbors to make a difference in the area. After the all-purpose court for either tennis or basketball was completed in 1947, the association held a band concert and fair on the property to raise money for playground equipment, which was installed the next year in 1948. How great would it be to have the 70th anniversary for that original playground with a brand new one in 2018? Through my research and talking with all my neighbors, I've since learned of the Quonset hut that the original Whalen Recreation Association put up to hold meetings in is something near and dear to people's memories. They held art classes, CCD classes, scout meetings, and Christmas parties, just to name a few things that they did there. It has been great to learn about the park's heyday in the 60s when there was always something going on, and there was as well a full-time staff person assigned to the park for the summer. Fast forward to the present. This is where my story begins. In December of 2016, our playground was removed due to safety standards. Other than a newer update around 2007 of what I'm assuming was the slide, since it was the newest looking piece of equipment there, nothing had changed since the 60s. This includes the ground material, the sand that was full of sand fleas so bad that you couldn't use the playground on a warm summer day. That's when I started meeting with Jack Rodrikins, the DPW director, to see what I could do to help. We have since started a community group of citizens known as the Friends of Wallace Park. We started out very grassroots, meetings at my house, handing out flyers door to door for a meet and greet day we had at the park in the spring. This led to a successful 2-day cleanup, chock full of volunteers, along with the entire DPW and Ray Morin Incorporated. In September of 2017, there were many talks and meetings along the way about what needed to be done to bring this park back to life. The ideas were very simple until we researched and found out just how expensive ADA-approved safe playground equipment really is. In going forward with being the best citizen I can be, I've since joined the Turkey Hill Family Lions Club here in Lunenburg. They're the largest club in the district, and we all know are big helpers when it comes to playgrounds. Now, when I started on this quest, I had no idea there was a line item on Article 7 for $12,000 towards playground equipment at annual town meeting, May 6, 2017. I was delighted when it went through, but knew there was much more work to be done. This project is much larger than originally anticipated, and the $12,000 barely puts a dent in building a playground to today's standards. We are asking for an additional $25,000 out of free cash for a total of $37,000 to purchase the playground equipment. We're asking for this at special town meeting as a citizen's warrant because there is no avenue for a citizen to put anything through capital planning on their own. We would simply like to grease the wheels of municipal spending to get our area a much-needed playground as soon as possible. The immediate area, the most densely populated in town, has 330 children 12 and under, according to the census data they have no playground to utilize. Now, both Jack Rodrikins and Karen Menard, a member of the Parks Commission, have applied for grants that we may or may not receive. If this $25,000 passes, the Lions Club has pledged to introduce a donation. That, along with the $12,000 allocated at last annual town meeting, is more than enough to begin the purchase of the much-needed equipment. Circulating around are the photocopies with the types of equipment and the costs. That being said, we feel that the town has looked over our area for far too long. If this doesn't pass through tonight, so we may move our neighborhood forward, I myself will not be able to give any more of my precious time towards this pursuit. I'm hoping for a positive outcome as I have recently been appointed to the Cultural Council and have many ideas for uses of this beautiful piece of property. Thank you.
So, Mr. Latark, this is how we understood what you moved, right? Transfer 25 from free cash, supplement the amount voted Article 7 in the town meeting, capital planning, providing 12 to be additional to be used for the project development, right?
That's correct.
Great. Requires a majority vote. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Bill Gustus. I live at 19 Burke Street. I'm here to speak in favor of this article. I supported Mr. Latark came to our house and knocked on our door, as he did virtually every house in the Whalen area. I've lived in that neighborhood for the last 10 or 12 years. My wife has been there for the last 60 plus. And the neighborhood has changed. We've got, 5 streets down there that
come off of Whalen Road and Burke Street forms the back side of it. If you're ever down there on Halloween, you'll know there's a police officer at the edge of the street because it's a safe neighborhood usually. But I can tell you, it was, it was populated by people in the 60s and 70s, and those houses are now turning over. They're being sold to families with children, and virtually every day I drive down Otis Street to get to Burke Street, and there are kids playing in the street. They're everywhere. And you have the big condo complex over on Lake Whalen. You have the apartment complex going in next to the baseball field over there. And that area has grown tremendously over the last 10 to 15 years. And I think that that park, if it were renovated, would be a great help and to the children and the families in that area. And it's about time to give Whalen a little love. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Beth Fager, Leominster Shirley Road. I just want to clarify the location. Is it the one that has the basketball court and the little parking lot right on? Okay, thank you.
Yep. Good. Easy. Thanks. Sir.
Mr. Moderator, my name is Dave Rogers. I live at 82 Highland Street, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the Turkey Hill Lunenburg Lions Club. When I heard what Chris was doing, I brought it before the Lions Club, and we voted to establish a $5,000 matching grant. Specifically, we would contribute $5,000 to the cause if we could raise $5,000. I'm here this evening to tell you that we've done that and more. We have enough in terms of in-kind donations, plus the money to kick it over and do what we have to do so that the $37,000 would be used just for the playground equipment. In addition, I obviously put the arm on a bunch of people, and this includes fixing the fence at the basketball court. It includes cutting down trees in the back of the 2-acre parcel. It includes having delivered special mulch, or what's the term, Chris?
The ADA approved ground material.
I've
learned a lot about playgrounds.
We get enough money for that, and the rest of the money would go for the equipment. And the situation that I want to make sure that everybody knows is that we won't be back to the town in the foreseeable future for anything. We have enough to do with it, what it is we want to do, and it's important for us to get this thing going so that we'll be done in the spring. And I hope that everyone here supports this because it's a long time overdue. Thank you.
Andrea LaFord, 53 Pleasant Street. Mr. Moderator, may I please hear the recommendations from the two boards?
Oh, we're going to get there, you betcha.
Mr. Moderator, Dave McDonald, Island Road, Lunenburg. With the Christmas season upon us, I'd just like to give a round of applause to the Turkey Hill Lions Club. They've always been there for us. They deserve it. Thank you.
If we could have the recommendation from the board of selectmen. Go ahead, Mr. McCoy. Then we'll go with your recommendation.
Right. I just wanted to ask the town manager to confirm that we have money available in free cash, because the term free cash might be a little confusing. We don't just have a bunch of money laying around. A lot of it's allocated, so.
Yes, we do. Our free cash was certified this fall. I believe there's 818,000 approximately.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, can I make a comment before we vote? Because I really do have to explain my vote.
Go ahead.
The Board of Selectmen is going to take a roll call vote on whether we recommend it or not.
You are.
We wanted to wait and hear the presentation. I just want to point out that we do have a capital planning committee and a process for going through that committee with capital requests. And as was mentioned earlier, we have 3 times the requests as we have money, including free cash, which is not free and is not cash. This particular, the original $12,000 was approved by the Capital Planning Committee, and this request could in fact be put into this year's capital plan and prioritized with all our other requests and voted at the annual town meeting as opposed to this special one. I do also want to commend the grassroots effort and would be willing to personally contribute to Mr. Rogers' strong arm.
Excellent.
But if
we're having fun, Rogers. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to make a point that I don't think it was clear. When I asked the folks for money and in-kind donation, it was contingent on the town coming up with the money. So if we come up with the money, they will come up with what they have pledged and the in-kind. If the town does not come up with the money, they will not contribute. So I wanted to make that point eminently clear.
Point well taken. Please, could we have a roll call?
To support, the motion would be to support
Article 5.
Recommendation of Article 5. Mr. McQuaid.
I support Article 5.
Mrs. Luck.
I support Article 5.
Mrs. Bertram.
I support Article 5.
Mr. Ebersol.
I support Article 5.
And Mr. Toll supports Article 5.
Yeah. I knew you'd come around. Finance Committee, what was your recommendation?
Actually, I guess we'll have to do a roll call. So
Do a roll call. Thank you.
Mark Lucia. Jay Simeone.
I've changed that. After hearing from the Capital Planning Committee Chair, I changed my vote to aye.
And I will vote aye as well.
There we go. Let me guess. All those in favor of Article 5, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. I think it was unanimous. You realize we're first the time. Citizen petition. You want to get work done? Come to the town meeting with your petition. Article 6, Mr. McQuaid, Technology Revolving Fund. Article 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all about revolving funds. Mr. McQuaid.
Move the town vote to authorize in accordance with MGL Chapter 4, Section 53E and a half, a revolving fund for the deposit of proceeds from a technology fee for the purpose of payment of software fees, software upgrades, and equipment related to electronic permitting. Charges and money received in connection with this program are to be deposited in said revolving fund and expended by the town manager, IT director, and land use director without further appropriation. Said revolving account expenditures shall not exceed $30,000 per year without approval of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. Finance Committee and Board of Selectmen recommend approval.
Well, I don't think that's part of the motion, but we'll get to that. Okay, speak to the article, Mr. McQuaid. Town manager, somebody?
The article is to create a revolving fund that will use a technology fee that is proposed to be placed on permits and licenses. The fees put into this account will then pay for software fees, software upgrades, and equipment related to electronic permitting. The users of the software will be the planning board, building department, ZBA, town clerk, board of health, conservation, selectmen, fire department, and DPW. The town manager will answer any questions.
Any questions about Article 6? Ready to vote? All those in favor of Article 6, majority vote, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved. Unanimous. Article 7.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 3, which leaves any balance remaining in a revolving fund established for the rental or lease of municipal building or property in the revolving fund and allows the expenditures of the fund for the upkeep and maintenance of said facility.
Is there a second? Selectmen, your recommendation.
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Finance.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Tell us about the article, Mr. Cole.
This article is to accept the provisions in Mass General Law that will allow the funds that remain unexpended at the end of the year in the artificial turf and T.C. Passio's Brooks House revolving funds to be carried over to the next fiscal year for the upkeep and maintenance of those said facilities. And the Finance Director can answer any questions.
Seeing no one at the microphone, I'll declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 7, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 8, Mr. Ebersol, another revolving fund.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to establish a revolving fund for the deposit of proceeds from the rental and lease of the artificial turf field located at 1079 Massachusetts Avenue, starting in fiscal year 2018, which began on July 1st, 2017.
Is there a second? Second. Selectmen, your recommendation.
Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
What about this article, Mr. Ebersol?
This article is to create a revolving fund that will use rental and lease payments received for the use of the turf field at the middle high school into the fund for the payment of the bond, and could pay for maintenance and contribute towards the replacement costs at the end of life of the current artificial turf and track field. If this fund was not established, these funds would go into the general fund. The Finance Director is available to answer any questions if there are any.
And we have a question. Sir.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. Although it's a very optimistic statement that there will be money available to pay for the replacement of the field, a number of meetings that I've attended recently indicate that there very well may not be any money accumulated in that account because of getting the bond paid off and the annual upkeep of the track and field over its lifetime.
Thank you. Anyone else? Declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 8, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 9, Mrs. Bertram, another revolving fund about Passios and the Brooks House.
I move that the town vote to establish a revolving fund for the deposit of proceeds from the rental and lease of the T.C. Passios building located at 1025 Massachusetts Avenue and the Brooks House located at 1033 Massachusetts Avenue, starting in fiscal year 2018, which began on July 1st, 2017.
Is there a second? Selectmen, your recommendation.
The Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Finance.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Tell us about the article, Mrs. Bertram.
This article creates a revolving fund that will use rental and lease payments received for the use of the T.C. Passios and the Brooks House into the fund for maintenance and upkeep in the buildings. Under the Municipal Modernization Act that went into effect on November 7th, 2016, cities and towns are allowed to create a revolving fund under Mass General Law for proceeds from rental of non-school properties, and this authorizes expenditures without appropriation for the upkeep of those properties. This is an expansion of the section of law which previously only addressed creating a revolving fund for the rental of surplus school buildings. The Finance Committee is available to answer any questions.
Seeing that there are no questions, I'll declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 10, Mrs. Luck, a deed in lieu of foreclosure on Chase Road.
I move that the town vote to accept a deed in lieu of foreclosure to property known as and numbered 842 Chase Road, more specifically identified in the assessor's records as map 13, parcel 013-0001, and being further described in deed book 3611, page 145, as recorded in Worcester North District Registry of Deeds, such property to be held in the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission for conservation purposes, and to thereby treat as having been paid real estate taxes and other municipal charges and liens on said property, all in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 60, Section 77C.
Is there a second? Second. Selectman, recommendation.
Recommend approval.
Finance.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
Tell us about the article, Mrs. Luck.
This article is related to a parcel of land that the owner wishes to donate to the Conservation Commission, but there are outstanding property taxes. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 60, Section 77C, allows cities and towns to accept the land in the same manner as if a foreclosure had occurred, and the back taxes are treated as if it went through the tax title foreclosure process. There is no effect on the assessor's overlay account. It would be an adjustment of the receivables balance.
Thank you.
Town manager can answer any questions.
Everybody, she's here to answer questions. Sir.
Mr. Moderator, I did a little bit of research on that property a week or so ago for personal purposes. But I'd like to, through you, ask Town Council. My research shows that this property is listed in the assessor's office as 842 Chase Road rear. 842 Chase Road is a very small piece of property with the old, I don't know if it's a church or school building on it. So I believe that the identification in this article is incorrect.
Mr. Carter.
So through you, Mr. Moderator, I can't speak to the correctness of the article. I can say that in addition to referencing the property by it being known as and numbered 842 Chase Road, there's also an assessor's map and parcel number, as well as a deed book and page. So I would have to defer to others as to whether or not those assessor's record references and book and page references identify the correct parcel of property.
I wonder if there's somebody here who can answer this. Do we know Mr. Passios is challenging or questioning at least whether or not we've got the right parcel identified in the article?
As Town Council stated, the correct assessor's map and registry of deeds reference is correct for the 23 acres.
They believe they've got it correct, Mr. Passios. No more I can tell you.
I just question that a little bit because the assessor's office, I pulled all the information, the assessor's cards, everything, and they even had trouble separating the two properties for me when I asked for 842 because I said it was 23 acres, and their first search into the system came up with the very small piece that's 80 by 100 feet with a building on it that is presently owned by McNiff's, I believe. And that parcel is completely surrounded by 846. 842 rear is landlocked behind them. I'm not against the article. I just want to make sure that we're taking this property correctly.
Mr. Moderator, as a former tax collector, what happens back in the 80s, anytime that we took property, you don't take it by the address, you take it by the book and page and the deed. So it's a little bit like when you go and look at our charter or our bylaws, the title is for convenience. You go to the actual language for what is really required. So the fact that when the tax collector took a lien against the property, and if we were to foreclose, you can foreclose on the book and page and the assessor's page. That's what they would do a title search on, not on the address.
And I happen to have the property card with me, and it references 842 with that map and lot number.
Sir.
Brandon Kibbe, 146 Rolling Acres Road. I'm also the chairman of the Open Space Committee. 842R is another way it's been referenced in the assessors, so a simple amendment to this clarify Mr. Passios' concern and make it 842R. I would propose that amendment.
You want to make the motion, you're proposing an amendment to amend Article 10 so that it says 842R Chase Road. Second. There's a second. Okay. He wants to amend Article 10 so that it says land at 842R Chase Road. And that's been seconded. Any discussion or debate about that? Select board?
I would reiterate, I mean, I have the card in front of me. It says 842, not 842R.
Town Council.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I have the benefit thanks to internet access, to review the online records available through the Lunenburg Assessor's Office. There are multiple properties that are listed with a street address of 842 Chase Road, hence the confusion. Of course, each of the individual properties is separately identified by a parcel identification number. The parcel identification number here is correct, 13-0001, and as is the book and page reference consistent with your assessor's record. So I won't speak to the propriety of the motion to amend, whether it's identified as 842 in the motion or 842 rear. It is the parcel number and the book and page number that will dictate the property that is subject to the action that is proposed in the article.
I also looked at them online, and there are several, as was stated, there are several properties that have the address of 842 Chase Road, so I don't believe there's a reason for the amendment. As council stated, it's dependent upon the assessor's information and the book and page, so I don't believe the amendment is necessary.
Gentleman wants to withdraw the amendment. Whoever seconded it, will you withdraw that? Okay, they're both withdrawn. Article 10 is now before you. I think you're ready to vote. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Passes by more than the majority. That was Article 10. Article 11. I bet there's some people here to talk about that. Another citizen's petition. Want to encourage you? Ms. Adams. Now they're lining up. Introduce yourself, thank you.
Sure, Katie Adams from Williams Drive, and I move that the town vote to place a moratorium of no less than 10 years on the sale of the land under building situated thereon, known as the Ritter Memorial Building located at 960 Massachusetts Avenue, shown on Assessor's Map 071 Lot 074, the land and or building situated thereon, known as the old primary school, building located at 30 School Street, shown on Assessor's Map 071 Lot 076, the land and or building situated thereon, known as Town Hall, located at 17 Main Street, shown on Assessor's Map 060 Lot 005, the land and or building situated thereon, known as the Brooks House, located at 1033 Massachusetts Avenue, shown on Assessor's Map 60 Lot 55, and the land and or building situated thereon, known as T.C. Passio School, located at 1025 Massachusetts Avenue, Assessor's Map 60, Lot 55, or take any other action relative thereto.
There's a second. Selectmen, your recommendation.
The Board of Selectmen does not recommend approval.
And Finance.
The Finance Committee, even though we do recognize that there are financial costs associated with updating the buildings, find that a moratorium does not have any impact on the current budget. So we find no direct financial impact.
No impact. Thank you. Ms. Adams, you can speak to your article now.
Sure, I'm sorry, I'm a little loud with the microphone, so I'll try to. So again, my name is Katie Adams, and I've been working on the concept of municipal land preservation for many months now. It began for me in April when I started to hear conversations about moving to T.C. Passio's and about selling the properties in the center of town. And so making this moratorium, or the Article 11, was created so that we could have this conversation, which we're about to have. Without having this article, we're really not defining whether or not we want to keep our municipal land or sell some of our municipal land. Now, as far as the moratorium goes, it's important to point out that having it does not prohibit progress on these parcels of land. It's not a status quo. We can enhance any of these properties so that they benefit the town. It does not prohibit economic development in town center, because economic development can occur on private property. We don't have to dispose of historic municipal land to encourage economic development. So, as I had said, this was really about defining keep municipal land or sell municipal land, and a team came together to work on this. Municipal land is our common ground. It's where the community can come together. As our population grows, we can't yet predict how these parcels of land might enhance our municipal identity. It is the land that needs preservation, even more so than the buildings. We need to reflect on the historic value of the land, the present needs of the town, and most importantly, when it comes to our land, we need to look at the unknown element that the future holds. And when we talk about preserving land, I think this building is a perfect example. Back when they made the old high school, there was a lot of land back here abutting Oak Ave that some of it didn't have an intended use. Because we had this land available to us, we were able to accomplish a school, something that they wouldn't have had the foresight to know was going to happen back when we had our other building. I think it's very important that we do not sell off our historic municipal land. We can lease it, we can improve it, we can remove a building like Old Primary and improve open space. And none of these things will prevent economic development. They won't prevent, moving forward with taking care of our buildings. And so please consider voting yes on Article 11 so that we retain our land for future municipal use rather than dispose of it. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got questions. Young lady, you're not going to move this question, right?
No, not
I didn't think so.
But I would like to speak against it. Faith Beal, 54 Riley Road, which is the 55-plus senior citizen development.
You're not old enough for that, are you?
Oh yes, way beyond. 11 years beyond the minimum age. But anyway, I do have accessibility problems. And I find it difficult to go to town hall. I'm also a volunteer on a committee for the town, and when the selectmen and women wanted to have a meeting up on the top floor and invited the different committees to come to it, I had to find my way somehow on that little freight elevator up to the second floor. Now, I'm not against maintaining offices there just because of that. I'm willing to go out of my way, but that's not the issue. I also worked at a historical college in a building where there was mold, and I got very, very sick. In fact, I really got a terrible case of pneumonia from the molds. I'm concerned about our town employees. I'm concerned about the safety of the building. It's not insulated. It has mold problems, and the envelope isn't good. It was so nice to see it painted recently, and I want to, thank everyone who did that. We don't want to watch our beautiful buildings go down the tubes because we don't have the money to keep them up. It would be so much better to let a developer who has the money to put in to the buildings to preserve them. This building wasn't originally town hall when it was built. It had another use. It became town hall eventually, but nobody here is looking to make it into a strip mall, and we have a wonderful committee in town, the Architectural Protection Committee, that it's their responsibility to make sure that the character of this town remains. I think that this article is insulting to our town government. It's insulting to our wonderful volunteer select people who give so much of their time. We've elected them to make important decisions for us. And anyway, it will come back to town meeting before anything is finalized. But we can't just tie their hands for 10 years. That's very insulting, and it's counterproductive. And no one will allow the place to be demolished. Give some credit to your elected officials and to the processes that we have, this democratic process that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. So, one of the things that I have to do when I see the warrant is make sure that everything seems appropriate as far as I can tell, that the town people are advised into what they're voting on. So we have a meeting before the town meeting, and I talked to town council about a moratorium for 10 years. So I wanted to ask him the same question that I asked so that you have the benefit of understanding what it means to have a moratorium for 10 years on these buildings. So, Mr. Costa.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Moderator. So, this is not the first citizen's petition of this type that I've seen in the various communities that I've represented over the years. It's often that a citizen will present a petition that intends to express the intentions of town meeting. Whether the language used or the objective that is sought is something that is permissible by law is often a different question. And so the answer that I gave to the moderator in that meeting that we had in response to his question is that certainly an article like this can express the intent of town meeting. It can express an intention and send a message to those that govern the town, your Board of Selectmen, that there is a desire, if an article like this were to pass, that these buildings not be sold. However, it can't bind future town meeting action. Nothing would prevent town meeting, this body, from coming back at a future town meeting, next year's annual town meeting 3, 5, 7 years from now, during the 10-year moratorium period, and voting to authorize the selectmen to sell these municipal buildings. There's nothing that can bind a future town meeting in that manner, even an article of this sort. So it expresses the intent of town meeting if it were to pass, but it can't bind a future town meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Again, Doug McQuaid, 30 Cushing Lane, Lunenburg. My problem with the fact that even though you say a moratorium doesn't bind us in any particular way, then we can come back to this meeting. It's going to put a thought in the developer's head. Wow, I got another step to go through. We did elect these people all here in other different committees. Back 3, 4, 5 years, we started doing research into the center of town, historic buildings, historic sites, to start looking at all this stuff. To bring this up 5 years after the fact, just because a person just happened to fall into this information, is kind of discerning to me. It's like a roadblock. It's like me coming to my house and doing some work on my house, and somebody all of a sudden, after I've gotten all my permits, say, oh, wait a minute, you can't do that. And I have another hurdle to go through. I don't see us having to have another special meeting in order to override a moratorium. That's what we elected these people for. And that's why we have committees. That's why they're doing the walkthroughs and the other symposiums that they're doing about what the town wants, how to handle the center of town. Nobody's asking to get rid of the center of town. We're asking how to get people to come to the center of town. Right now, the only way you get people into this center of town to look at that beautiful building is to pay their taxes 4 times a year. Or maybe their water bill also. Or you've got somebody riding down through from New Hampshire to get down south to go in the morning. That's why we got 2 stop signs. That at least slows them down so they can look at the center of town. Short of us putting a toll booth at the lights there in the center of town, I don't see any way we're going to get money to come into the center of town to take care of those buildings. I made a statement of having to have deep pockets. This is just like the Money Pit movie with Tom Hanks and Shelley Long. You got deep pockets, that's great. I don't. I want to have these buildings taken care of. I want to keep these buildings. I want something to go in. I think we need just a little bit of help, and the moratorium slows anybody down to think about it.
Thank you. Sir, I'll get you, Mr. Quick. I will.
Bob Baracco, again, 10 Tilton Avenue, and I want to raise the question again. We saw from Article 1 buildings that are in such a condition that it's going to cost us tens, if not hundreds of thousands a year just to keep from falling down. The nice woman back here mentioned about the mold issues. They're all full of mold. How much more liability do we need to assume? I understand keeping Town Hall. It's a historical building. But the old elementary school, the old firehouse, they're barely anywhere near the 300 years that this town is old. Let's take the money that we're using on those buildings to maintain them, to refurbish Town Hall. Let's get rid of Turkey Hill, another building that's in dire repair. Use that to maintain the historical building. And again, as the other gentleman had just spoken, let's bring something else in. If we open them up for parks, great. But to leave the dilapidated buildings there, where we become liable for any school children that go in there and play around and horse around, and suddenly the buildings collapse. Now where are we going to be at? Are the buildings worth kids' lives, people's lives? I don't think so.
Thank you. Sir.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Jim Levesque, Larry 3, Lancaster Avenue. I do have a question for Town Council about the article. There's a specific language.
Go right ahead.
And then I also have a statement to make as well. So within the article, not what is printed up here, are the words at the end of this, or take any other relative action thereto. And I'd like to understand what that means. Does that mean that the selectmen can't solicit an RFP?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Moderator. So that is standard language that is often included with most any article on a warrant. The intention is to give the body an opportunity to take other action as opposed to voting the article. They could take action to indefinitely postpone the article, for example. They could vote the article down. They could make certain amendments, as you've already heard tonight, to an article. Whether an amendment could be made that would be beyond the four corners of the article, that's something that is generally deferred first to the moderator and then ultimately to council based upon an amendment that is presented.
All right, thank you.
But that's not the motion. The motion doesn't say take any other action. When we're notifying the people by the warrant, it's got that kind of language in it, so you're on notice that some way may be done. But her motion is exactly what's on the board now.
Okay. So as a resident of downtown, I can see Town Center from my yard. And I currently stand in opposition of Article 11. I believe Article 11 is unnecessary and sufficient protections already exist to quote-unquote save the center. My first issue with the article is it calls for a moratorium based on an arbitrary number of 10 years. I see no evidence that this number was based on projections, studies, or anything other than town's tricentennial in 2028 and a citizen's desire to have a central town space in which to celebrate. Secondly, I believe we already have an indefinite moratorium on the sale of these properties or buildings. Any potential sale is already required to be brought to town meeting. To me, this is redundant and sends a message that for at least the next 10 years, this town will not even entertain the thought of selling any of these properties while they continue to decay. For example, the old primary school, the town was debating what to do with this empty building 10 years ago, and there's still no resolution. Meanwhile, I understand the building is falling further into a state of disrepair, and it could be subject to what we would define as demolition by neglect. With a moratorium, we're signaling that we are not open to any investment opportunity for any of the properties, that we're stuck with decaying buildings approaching 100 years old, and if we were to want to demolish any of the buildings, we have to pay for it even if there was a public-private partnership option available by a developer. And while I appreciate the sentiment behind the article, I do believe that we need to remain open to possibilities of change that can be brought to Lunenburg, and that the protections necessary to keep the historical nature of the center already exist via the Village District bylaw, the Demolition Delay bylaw, and the Architectural Preservation District bylaws. I believe we're covered already. This is redundant.
Thank you. Mr. McQuaid.
So I want to say that this article is premature in my mind for anyone to make a decision that we're going to do or not do something. What the Board of Selectmen are trying to do now with these walkthroughs, we're starting the charrettes, what we're trying to do is start the conversation about what we're going to do with the town center. We may very well hold on to all the properties. I don't know how it's going to shake out. That could happen. But we need to talk about it. And this is stopping the conversation before we have it. Like town council said, we can override this at a future town meeting, but it's more symbolic that the people of the town need to be willing to have a conversation with each other, to keep our ears open, to communicate, and work to find innovative solutions to a complex problem that we have in the center of town. So it's more about being open to discussion, and I want to formally invite all of you to take part in that discussion and continue to be part of that discussion, because it's going to take all of us to come up with a good answer. So again, I'm definitely against this article. I think it cuts the conversation short, and it does a disservice to everyone in this room and everyone in this town to not talk about the issue.
Ma'am.
Maureen Martin at 54 Longwood Drive. I'm in favor of this article, and I'm going to tell you why. I have been attending selectmen meetings, and as far as the only person that came forward in the past, when this was brought up about selling property and, you know, maybe doing something with the center of the town, was for low-income housing to be put in the center of town. That was the only person that came forward. So as far as that was concerned, that was to tear down the building and to put that up. So this does not stop taking the land and leasing it. So maybe you might have somebody that comes to you and says, I want to put it in here. I am willing to take the Ritter Library and turn it into a beautiful inn. Well, you are still in control of the land. You can lease it. You don't have to sell it.
Thank you. Sir.
Hi, Jeffrey Mendoza, 162 Lancaster Avenue. Currently serving as chairman of the Lunenburg Agricultural Commission. And Article 11 has really dominated our last two meetings for the simple reason that, as many of you know, the Lunenburg Community Farmers Market has been being held on the lawn of the Ritter Building the last many years. In the last couple of years, through the hard work of our management team and all of the vendors who participate, and all of the people in town who come out to support the farmers market, it was a really banner year this year. Anyone who braved the rain on our family day could see that we are luckily rapidly outgrowing that space. If you look at Lunenburg as a farming community, one thing that's been changing in the economy sort of farming is that microeconomies are getting stronger, and a difficulty that many producers have is finding a place where they can grow their businesses without the requirement of being able to supply a Hannaford, for example, with produce, with any other products that they might make. The Agricultural Commission is looking at expanding the market. We are eligible as a town to have a permanent market, potentially a winter market, and a lot of the property that the town owns would potentially be very suitable for this purpose. And there is a concern among the Agricultural Commission and its supporters that if the land were actually, if any of the town land were actually to be sold, it would change the opportunities for, you know, supporting these small local economies, these backyard economies, and even some of the farmers that are a lot bigger than backyard. The Agricultural Commission has voted unanimously in favor of Article 11, and we feel that it's actually not closing the door to discussion. It's actually opening the door to making sure that the discussion stays open to everyone in the town. If the property is sold to a developer, and then an organization like the Lunenburg Community Farmers Market goes to potentially a larger space, which it looks like we're going to need in the very near future. If it's on town property, it's much more conducive to, you know, to the cost involved for backyard producers, and it also would lead to, you know, potential difficulty with some of the Board of Health regulations and things like that that pertain to the markets. So like I said, the Agricultural Commission has voted unanimously in support of Article 11. We would urge the town to support it as well. And for what it's worth, on the side note, when we look at bringing things to Lunenburg Center, I happened to notice before the meeting today on the MSN homepage, there were the 25 hottest attractions list, and on that was a fairly sizable farmers market in Seattle. Granted, Seattle is obviously not Lunenburg, but if you look at what's happening with farmers markets and these sort of events, it really is, farming tourism is something that could bring traffic into Lunenburg Center.
Thank you, sir.
Eric Arnold,
Hemlock Drive. I'd like to speak out against this kind of arbitrary article and move the question.
No. Not ready to move the question. You can speak against it if you wish, but I don't think we're ready. Sorry.
Rebecca Landry, 251 West Street. I am in support of this article. I once again agree that we should maintain control of the municipal lands. You look at the town of Cambridge, they lease their land. They control it. They have a plan for what they're going to do. We are not that different. We give up this land and we don't have any control of what happens, what then starts to be produced or not produced. We lose all control. Joe Bellata wanted to buy this poor little post office that was next door to the town hall. Why? Because he wanted more municipal land for us. Okay? We have special regulations in the center of town. The special regulation is that old TC Passio, the old primary site, is a 40R. Do you know what a 40R would get you for a developer? You could have a 30-story building on that property. Wouldn't that look cute in the center of town? But that's what you got, and that was what was put forward by the planning board, and that's what's being held at bay. No, I don't agree that these buildings should rot. I don't agree with demolition by neglect. It's against my historic nature soul, okay? But when we put the old primary to bed, that had a brand new furnace. A brand new furnace that was mothballed and allowed the building to have the pipes freeze. What kind of mothballing is that? What kind of maintenance is that? Nothing. You know, we wonder why these buildings rot. We have to look to ourselves. We've been neglectful. So, please.
Thank you. Mike Clark, 275 Cross Road. I guess my real issue is people projecting that we should subjugate ourselves to elected boards, and because they've spent a lot of time on this and studied it. When our town charter gives us the right as citizens to do just what Katie Adams did, to look at things with a different view, maybe think outside the box, or have a different set of values, and bring an article to the town meeting. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to realize that anybody in the audience can write these articles, anybody can exercise their thought here, and not just subjugate it to, well, we elected boards, they've studied it a lot. Again, they're elected officials. We may not have voted for some of them. We may have voted for people who had a different of opinion. So I think it's incumbent on the people in the room to make a decision based on what the best decision they think it is, because it's within all our rights to act as a citizen and bring articles to the town floor. Thank you.
Sir. I'll call on you people. Calling on you.
Just trying to help you with your job, Mr. Moderator. One of the Dave McDonald Island Road, Lunenburg. Somebody asked a question a minute ago, I think it was Rhonda, what towns are converting town halls into school. It's funny you said that. If you Google that, the town of Sharon just voted for it on November 6th. That's one. But there's like 7 or 8 in the state of Massachusetts because it's fiscal responsibility taking over the old schools. So that's hopefully that answers your question. The other thing is that I spent 4 years on the building reuse committee, 4 years of my life doing research. And I'm kind of disturbed that some of the things have been coming out because they're not factual at all. But one of the things I want to say is I want you to look at the town hall as Pottersville from This Wonderful Life. It's owned by one person, all the businesses in town. It's one person. Think about that. You can't have any opportunity. You don't have any competition. So when we did our recommendations to the board, we also put in there our recommendations to save the town center as well. We just have different opinions on saving the town center. We like to look at it as a fiscal responsibility for the citizens of this town. Every year our taxes keep going up. The demo of the Passio, $1 million. The demo of the primary school, at least $200,000 to $300,000. Where does that money come from? So open land is not free. It costs money. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we'll call on Mrs. Perkins. That's you wanted.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This body just voted 2 articles to come up with plans to identify the structures of our building, the needs, the deficiencies, the ability of them to accommodate other uses. Before we have any kind of decision, we need to come up with a comprehensive plan. As was stated earlier, this moratorium essentially stops that discussion. We need to have that discussion. The idea of leasing space, that sounds great, except the town still retains the liability for those buildings, and it essentially means that we have to cover that by insurance, which will be very, very costly if we rent and lease those buildings. Nobody's talking about selling anything right now. We're talking about coming up with a comprehensive plan for buildings so that we don't leave them vacant and we don't let them fall into disrepair like we did with the primary school. I've told you about the walkthrough on December 2nd. The charrettes that will begin on December 7th, and there will be many of them, to hear what people think should happen. But we need to have that discussion. The future of town buildings and the land is not decided by us as elected officials. It will be decided by this meeting. But let us have the conversations, and let's come up with a plan. This basically closes the planning door. So don't do that. Leave it open. And there's no need, there's no critical development coming down the road that we need to decide tonight that we're going to put a moratorium on. Over the next course of until town meeting or even another year, let's have the conversations, let's make informed decisions, come up with a plan for our town center, for our municipal offices, and move forward as a community. But let's have that discussion. This will close and end that discussion.
Let's give Ms. Adams a chance to speak again, because everybody's had a few words. Thank you.
Sure, yes. This won't maybe go in order of any way of sense. It's just how I've written down in response to what some people have said. First of all, with town hall, mold comes up a lot. The mold was remediated and the air quality was tested, and it came back that the air quality was fine. So employees right now are not in danger inside the town hall. I think that's important to say. And like I said earlier at Article 4, I think everybody would support as we upgrade any buildings to enhance accessibility, and I think that's possible at any site. When we talk about the cost of these buildings, I think it's very important to point out that the TC Passios building is about 55,000 square feet, which is very large, and typically operational costs are square footage based. And so going to a preferred option of TC Passios and abandoning town center puts us into a building far larger than we need, and there is indeed a cost associated with that. More importantly, I think some of these parcels may not even be able to be sold. I think it's important to point out that the Brooks House is full of drainage easements for the library and likely couldn't be sold anyways, and that the town hall would be deeded back to the Putnam family from the 1800s and likely can't be sold. So some of these buildings we will likely need to retain even if there was a desire to sell them. Mr. McQuaid said that he wanted to start the conversation and that we have meetings coming up to tour buildings and we need to start a conversation. I have 3 pages here. Starting in 2013, the conversation has been had for selling the center. The wheels have been in motion. There's been articles in the past that have attempted to give conveyance so selling would be easier. So in terms of saying, oh, because of this moratorium, we're going to talk about starting the conversation's been occurring for many, many years. I wanted to touch upon the farmers markets, and the reason that came up is we've talked an awful lot about the site of Old Primary. And the site of the old primary, I think we all agree that building is in the worst condition. Instead of selling that off to a developer where we've seen pictures of 50 apartments or a parking garage, we could retain that land and build something like an improved town common where we can support the local economy by having improved farmers markets, larger craft fairs, summer concert series. So there's a way to use our center of town in a municipal way that will enhance Lunenburg. Now, Lunenburg will be here longer than any of us. You know, it's sort of morbid. We're kind of talking about it just in the context of something very specific today.
like how will we have this store or that restaurant? But there's going to be a batch of people sitting, probably not here because this will be demolished, you know, 150 years from now, and they'll be in some state-of-the-art, I don't know, floating school or something. But we're talking about this land like it belongs to us. It belongs to Lunenburg, and it would be very uncommon for a town to sell its historic municipal land because we are doing a disservice to everybody that'll live here after us. In terms of leasing, I find it very ironic that they're talking about leasing being a liability because we have a history of leasing these properties. We've leased TC Passios to the Flat Collaborative School for many, many years. We are currently leasing the Brooks House. So to talk about leasing as an option is something extremely negative. It's something we're currently doing and have had a history of doing. The moratorium isn't closing the door on planning. It is just saying we should keep this historic municipal land and use it to enhance Lunenburg. It's not a specific thing. It's not necessarily a town green or whether or not a building is demolished. It's that this land belongs to the town, and I don't understand why we've become a group of people who think that selling historic municipal land would benefit Lunenburg because a private developer can accomplish private development on private property. So that's just some updates.
I'm going to let the people that are in line speak, and I'm going to give you the last word, okay? So keep taking your notes. I think that's only fair. You've done a lot of work. People that are in line, let's keep it focused. Don't tell me the long history of how long you've lived in Lunenburg. Give me a minute or so about your position, because I'm going to guess a lot of people have already made up their mind, and it's getting late, and I turn into a pumpkin at midnight.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator, I will be extremely brief. There's been a record set this evening, and that record is that Dave Rogers agrees with Becky twice in one evening. So Becky Landry, there is progress. I personally do not want to sell anything in the town center. I've come full circle on this thing. And at the end of the day, the thing that we should do, I think, is to put money into the town hall and the Ritter because there's nothing else that we could do with them. The town hall sits on just the land that it is, and there's no parking there, and there's no parking with the Ritter. So, and keep the 8 acres plus for future schools, and that's my thought.
Mr. Mack.
Mike Mack, 26 Cortland Circle. Again, I'm rising to speak against the article. One of the things that I continue to hear, which is kind of a head scratcher for me, is that somehow this article is preventing the sale of town land. This article does nothing of the sort. As we've heard from council, we could come back in May with somebody with a proposal to sell the property, and we'd be having this debate. This moratorium does not accomplish that. So we can agree that we all want to see a viable town center. We can agree that we want to maintain the historic character of our town center. We have bylaws to do that. We can agree that we have to look at what the costs involved are. This article does not do that. This article doesn't do any of that. So I urge you to vote against it.
Thank you. Sir.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. Town Council has already weighed in on this article, but I do have a question to pose to him again through you, Mr. Moderator. Last year's annual town meeting, there were a number of articles in regards to transfer and control of these 5 buildings we've been talking about all evening to the control of the selectmen. And one property in particular was the primary building that there has been, and I believe still some question as to what the status of that property is. With the article being passed over at the last annual town meeting, it leaves the question from previous town meetings still up in the air. No one on this stage could give us a clear answer at annual town meeting. Nobody's given us a clear answer since then as to whether or not the primary property is protected the way everybody says it is and is not already turned over to the select board. I believe it is not, and that's one of the things that this article does. It once and for all ends that debate.
You know the answer?
I do, Mr. Moderator. I came prepared.
Excellent.
So we've done a bit of a review. There is a varied history here in terms of this issue or these issues being raised at multiple town meetings over the years. Obviously, none of which, other than the most recent, I've been at personally. But I've got the records to review. And so there was a vote back in the annual town meeting of 2009 when the selectmen were given that authority with respect to the old primary school. But subsequently, there have been a couple of different opportunities for this body to consider not only the old primary school, but also these other various buildings that are town-owned that have been discussed tonight. One opportunity was at the special town meeting on November 28th of 2016, when there was an article, it was Article 5 at the time, that addressed all 5 of these buildings, and the article as proposed in the warrant would have given the selectmen the authority to convey the properties or do a variety of other things with the properties. But the article was voted in such a way that all that was allowed was the soliciting of proposals for the possible conveyance, lease, or subdivision of the parcels and or buildings situated thereon, and then to present any submitted plans or proposals for the reuse of buildings at some future town meeting. That occurred at the special town meeting in 2016. And then, as you all know, at your most recent annual town meeting, there were 4 articles concerning 4 of these buildings, and 2 of them were defeated and 2 of them were passed over. So I'm of the opinion that as we stand here today, there is no authority with respect to any 5 of these buildings for the selectmen to convey them without a further town meeting vote. So that goes to my position earlier that the moratorium has no immediate legal effect in that sense, and that the need to convey these properties in the future or the desire to convey them would require, necessitate further authorization from town meeting.
I appreciate the final clarification.
Thank you. Sir, Mr. Alonso.
Tom Alonso, 284 Lancaster Avenue. On an article that has very little agreement, I think we can agree that there's very strong passions about what should be done with the properties the town owns in town center. To that end, I don't want people to lose sight of the fact that the power to sell these properties, if you are against it, the power to sell that is this body. And twice in the past 2 years, I believe, there were articles that were asking this body to convey those rights to the Board of Selectmen, and the passions were such that it was denied. So the process worked. As I stand here today, I am not for or against selling town properties because there is no plan for me to evaluate, and it seems to me to be illogical to put kind of invisible handcuffs on yourself that really have no teeth and ask yourself, whose power are you looking to limit? Because this power that says you can't sell them is in the hands of this body, so you're asking yourself to stop yourself from selling something when you shouldn't just sell it to begin with. So we really should take plans and not talk about hypotheticals and wait for real plans and fund real studies so that this body has something real to evaluate. So I ask people to vote against it.
I'm going to hear from this young lady, from Mr. Pease. Ms. Adams gets the last word and we vote. Go.
Heather Bowen, 188 Flat Hill Road. And I want to thank Katie Adams for putting this article on the warrant because I think it has done exactly what it should, which is stir up a lot of discussion. I mean, I've heard so many different sides I didn't think I was going to hear that might want to vote for this or might not, but I keep hearing how we do want to do something with our town center. And I want to say, I think it opens the conversation further. It doesn't close it. That walkthrough is a great idea, and this is helping us talk about it. And I think that even if we can't sell the property for 10 years, having this conversation and renting it is a fantastic idea. I'd say the majority of the businesses in our town center rent their space right now, and we have an article coming up on the warrant that's talking about renting space for a long period of time in one of our town buildings. So renting space might be a good idea. And also, I don't know how many of you people are familiar with Westminster, Massachusetts. That's where I grew up. And our town hall is deteriorating, and they've done some things things to patch up, but the idea was, what do we do with it? We sell it, we rent it. And they tried really hard to come up with ideas, but they couldn't get anyone to buy it. They couldn't get anyone to rent it because it's too far gone. So while Katie's talking about town land, I've heard many of you talk also about town buildings. If we do have a developer come in to buy the town hall, if it's as bad as people are making it out, or the Ritter building, as bad as people are making it out, it's likely that those developers are going to want to take them down. So we need to think about that also.
Thank you. You're going to get the second to last word. Go.
Bob Hughes, 11 Winter Green Court. I'd like to move the question.
No, you're not going to move the question. Ms. Adams is going to get the last word, and then we're going to vote. Go, Kate.
Sure, thank you. I thought Heather had a great closing in this, in that pass or fail, Article 11 was created so that we would talk about this. It was my experience as I started to learn about this idea of selling town center, was that I really wasn't aware if everybody realized that that was even something that could or would happen. And so the fact that we're here talking about it is part of why Article 11 was created. I think it was a great idea because without creating a financial burden or anything, we've created this chance to have a discussion. We keep talking about the fact that it's maybe non-binding, and I think it's important to point out that really in theory, everything we pass here can be undone or changed, and that's sort of the nature of all of this. So it's not unique to this article that we could make changes to it. Anything that happens tonight has a future ability to be changed. And so really I think this is just an opportunity for everybody to talk about the idea that selling historic municipal land doesn't have real clear advantages, and handing it over to a developer means that it's no longer ours. We won't be able to manage what town center is. So I would love for people to vote for Article 11, but either way, I'm really glad we are talking about it.
Thank you. So before you all leave me, we have several articles after this. The chief is sitting down in the front about speeding in the town, and he'll be taking names of everybody that leaves if I don't get it for him. Okay, counters, be ready. All those in favor of the moratorium in Article 11, please signal by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed to the moratorium in Article 11, please signal by saying nay. Nay. I believe the article has failed.
I doubt it.
Stand up, 7 people. You know what to do. Come on, we can do it. I'm sure you can. Okay, counters, come on down. Sometimes it's just who sings louder to me, you know? Counters, do I have all my counters? Mr. Pacenti, count the stage this time. And finance. Okay, ready, counters? All those in favor of Article 11's moratorium for 10 years, please raise your cards. When you're done, you come down to a microphone and announce the vote. On my left.
21.
21 in favor. On my right.
45.
45, including the stage, right? And who's that? 45 on my right.
30 in the middle.
30 in the middle. Okay. Now, all those opposed to Article 11's moratorium, please raise your card. This is a majority vote. On my right,
43.
43. In the middle,
Center is 57.
57. On the left,
38.
38. Got a calculator going. 96 in favor, 138 opposed. The article is defeated.
Thank you.
Mr. Gaddis, thank you for your work. Article 12, excuse me, let's not do 11 then. Mr. McQuaid, leasing at Town Hall T-Mobile.
Move that
If you're
the
going
town...
to leave, please do it quietly, but the chief's watching. We got speeding going on.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a lease agreement with a telecommunication company for the lease of the space at the Town Hall for a term of 10 years with 3 5-year extensions on such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deems in the best interest of the town, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to take all actions necessary to administer and implement such an agreement.
Is there a second? Second. Selectman, your recommendation.
Board of Selectmen recommends approval.
Finance.
Finance Committee recommends approval.
What about the article, Mr. McQuaid?
This article is on the warrant because the lease agreement with T-Mobile that was signed in the year 2000 is invalid. The law at the time only allowed for a 10-year lease, and the board at the time signed a 25-year lease agreement. Once the town meeting approved the new lease term of 25 years total, an RFP will be issued to comply with the procurement law as well. Town manager can answer any questions.
Anybody want to talk about T-Mobile? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 13, Mr. Toll, Salary Administration Plan.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Article 15, Salary Administration Plan of the General Bylaws, to add the position of Beach Director and assign to Grade 7. The position of Lifeguard to be added and assigned to Grade 1. The position of Local Inspector to be added and assigned to Grade 10.
Is there a second? Second. Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee. Finance Committee voted no direct impact.
No impact. Tell us about the article, Mr. Toll.
This article is to comply with the Salary Administration Bylaw to accept any new positions into the Salary Administration Plan at town meeting with their established grade as approved by the Personnel Committee.
Town manager's got answers for you if you have questions. Oh, step right up, young lady.
I would like to recommend approval because I thank the person who is doing the job, and she's done it for many years. She's a teacher in our school system, and thanks to her, she kept our beach open a week longer than all other towns because she was willing to stay there a week before school started. And I really appreciate, she goes out of her way, and if there was anyone worthy of this, I would say it's the beach director.
We have many dedicated town employees. You are absolutely right.
And Faith Beal, 54 Riley
All
Road.
those in favor of this article, Article 13, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 14, 15, and 16 have to do with speeding and parking.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Ebersol.
I move that the town vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 17C, authorizing the establishment of a speed limit of 25 miles per hour on any roadway inside a thickly settled or business district that is not a state highway.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Selectman, your recommendation.
Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance.
Finance Committee finds no direct financial impact.
No impact. Tell us about the article.
This article allows towns that accept this section of law and have subsequently a vote by the Board of Selectmen to establish a speed limit of 25 miles an hour in a thickly settled district that's not a state highway, and then notification to Mass Department of Transportation. This was a change in this section of law per the Municipal Modernization Act. The police chief is available to answer if there are any questions.
Right up front. Anybody want to talk about this article? Sir.
Michael Jeffries, 1170 Mass Ave. I just have one question. How will this affect the speed limit on Lancaster Ave?
Chief, how's it going to affect speeding on Lancaster? At the microphone, please.
That wasn't speeding, that was speed limit.
Oh, speed limit. Does it change the speed limit on Lancaster?
Well, since you never speed, Mike, is there a potential? Yes, there could be. This law comes with quite a few caveats. If Lancaster Ave was already posted, which it's not, it's a statutory speed limit. That means that typically what you would go by is the fact that if the houses are less than 250 feet apart for a quarter of a mile more, there'd be a 30-mile-an-hour zone statutorily. Outside of that, it'd be 40 miles an hour. So, yes, could we drop the speed limit to 25? It's possible under this new law. I don't know that it'd be practical in a lot of cases on roads like Lancaster Ave, but it gives us the opportunity to at least to study whether or not it would be feasible to do so. Where we had the opportunity before, but the process was much more cumbersome. And again, that's what the Municipal Modernization Act is all about, to try to make it a little easier for cities and towns officials to do these sorts of things. So, yes, I guess the long answer is it's possible.
Stay right there, Chief. Sir, do you have a question?
Yes.
Tell us your name and where you live.
My turn?
Yeah.
I'd like to speak in favor of this.
Just give us
My
your name and where you
observation.
live. Your name and where you live.
Pardon?
Your name and where you live first.
Right. Harold Allison, 188 Platte Hill Road.
Excellent. Tell us why you're in favor.
I'm in favor of this because of 25 miles per hour in a residential area. I spoke with Lieutenant Luth. My understanding from that conversation with him is that a reasonable and proper speed limit in a residential area where there is 100 feet or less distance between driveways of those residences is 25 miles per hour. Unfortunately, most areas in this town are 30 miles per hour. And people usually, my observation, drive at 35 or 40 miles per hour. So please pass this article.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on this article, number 14? Declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 14, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. 15, Mrs. Bertram.
I move that the town vote to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 18B, authorizing the establishment of designated safety zones with a speed limit of 20 miles per hour on, at, or near any way which is not a state highway, and or with the approval of the Division of Highways, a state highway.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you.
Selectmen recommend approval.
And Finance.
Finance Committee finds no direct financial impact.
Tell us about the article, Mrs. Bertram.
This article was recommended by the police chief, who's available to answer questions. The statute gives the town more latitude with respect to setting the speed limit below 30 miles per hour in certain areas, such as congested neighborhoods with large number of children, or to declare safety zones near daycare centers, playgrounds, or schools without a lengthy study.
Any questions on this article? Seeing none, I'll declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 16, Mrs. Luck.
I move that the town vote to accept Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 90, Section 20A and a half. Authorizing. Sorry about that. I move that the town vote to accept Massachusetts General Law. Chapter 90, Section 20A and a half, authorizing designation of a parking clerk to perform the duties specified in said statute.
Is there a second? Second. Selectmen.
Selectmen recommend approval.
Finance.
Finance finds no direct financial effect.
Tell us about the article, Mrs. Locke.
This article is recommended by the police chief after review of the traffic rules and orders. Presently, the town gets its authority to appoint a parking clerk and to set and enforce parking fines from Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 90, Section 20A. This statute only authorizes the town to set the fine for parking violations, with exceptions such as bus stops at $25. This would authorize the town to set fines for certain violations such as handicapped parking violations, and to correct action taken to increase fines in 2006 that more clearly is reflected in Chapter 90, Section 20A and a half. The police chief is available.
Anybody have questions? Seeing none, I'll declare we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Article 16, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 17, Mr. McQuaid, a lease agreement for learning technology.
I move that the town pass over Article 17.
Second. There's a second. Selectman, what is your recommendation of passing over?
Recommend passing
over, Selectman. Great.
Yes.
Finance. Recommend passing over. Agreed.
Who agreed?
Agreed. Thanks. Why are we passing it over? What was it?
Superintendent can answer any questions on this article.
Quick.
This particular article was based upon a partnership with numerous other school districts as well as the United Way Community Foundation. Unfortunately, given the numbers of players in this, and the numbers aren't firmed up yet, so we'll return when they are firm numbers and then present it to the town.
Thank you. All those in favor of passing over 17, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 18, a tax agreement. Mr. Toll.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to pass over Article 18.
Moving along. Is there a second? Selectman, your recommendation passing over?
Board of Selectmen recommends approval of
Finance
passing over.
Committee?
We're happy to recommend approval.
Thank you. Why are we passing it over? What is it?
The town voted at the September 25th, 2012 special town meeting to approve a pilot with NewGen. The regional assessor will be meeting with NewGen beginning in December to begin negotiations, and if the terms differ from the vote already taken on September 25th, 2012 special town meeting, it will be brought back before the voters at a future town meeting.
Excellent. All those in favor of passing over this article, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. 19 and 20 are obviously tied together. Mr. Bernie's coming down. We're going to discuss them together. This is stormwater. One is to delete what we have and put it into someplace else within the town structure. So we're going to move Article 19 now, Mr. Bernie, but we'll discuss 19 and 20 together. Go ahead.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw by deleting Chapter 250, Section 6.7, Stormwater Management, NPDES, Phase 2 permits, and Section 6.8 discharges to the municipal storm sewer system and waters of the Commonwealth, NPDES Phase 2 permits.
Thank you. Is there a second? Selectman, your recommendation.
Selectmen recommend approval.
Thank you. Finance.
Finance Committee finds no direct financial impact.
No impact. Mr. Bernie, tell us 19 and 20 what you're doing.
Okay, well, first I'll tell you that on Article 19, the Planning Board voted 5-0 in favor. As it is a zoning article, they're required to do so.
I appreciate your reminder. Thank you.
So, Article 19 and 20. In 2003, the EPA issued a Phase 2 permit. As part of that, which Lunenburg is subject to, there's a requirement that we have a stormwater bylaw. This was put in place 2006, 2007 in the zoning bylaws. It is more appropriately placed in the general bylaws as it doesn't apply specifically to zoning districts. It applies to use or construction on properties townwide, which are generally seen as general bylaws. So in an effort to, in the Planning Board's efforts over the last several years to clean up the zoning bylaws and contemporize them, we're looking to move articles to where they belong. So this would take the language from the zoning bylaw, pick it up as is with a very minor amendment dealing with effective date and place it very neatly into the general bylaws.
Tell us what the one change is between where it's going to be in zoning and where it's going to be in the general bylaws.
Okay, so, well, the one, there's an addition of 7 words. On page 6, paragraph C, the first line, the words following the effective date of this bylaw or installed. And what that does is it prevents anyone who is currently doing construction, has a permit under the zoning bylaw or otherwise going forward to not be subject to either double jeopardy or retroactive application of the requirements of this bylaw.
Otherwise, the bylaw is the same.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Jeffries.
Michael Ray Jeffries, 1170 Manasau. I just want to reiterate the planning board's unanimous support of this change and that there is not a content other than the one noted by Mr. Burney. It's not much of a content change from the current to this one.
Excellent. Mr. Joel?
Yeah, very dual, 20 Sunset.
I don't think it's on, because I can't hear you. Yep.
Is that on now?
No.
Okay, now you're okay? Now you're okay, okay. No, I just had a similar kind of clarification. I did hear what you said, but, you know, having read this 20 pages or something, I found it, you know, quite amazing. I guess I had been under the impression that, you know, the guidelines or the need for new legislation or new bylaws like this gets pushed out a couple of years, and that I didn't see any need that we would do anything before we had to. I want to do what's right. But
sure.
There's some definitions in here and things like that that are very troublesome, and maybe they exist in the existing bylaw.
They do.
So we are now currently requiring best management practices in all these areas. Best, not just standard practices. And pollution is defined as salt, sand, things of this nature. And of course the waterways are almost most of the town.
Correct. So a few clarifications. The Phase 2 permit was issued in 2003 originally, and it was a 5-year permit, which we're now in year 15 of. So the permit that is on hold through the EPA is the 2017 permit, which was supposed to be effective as of 1 July of this year. That's been pushed out to 1 July of 2018. The requirement of the 2003 permit included a need for subject communities to have a stormwater management bylaw. So that's what the language in here this very closely mirrors what the model bylaws that were put out by EPA, DEP, and other agencies were. So this is currently active. This is all of the current language except for the 7 words that I mentioned that have to do with the effective date. Pollution is probably a harsher term than you would expect, but what it is it's as defined within the Clean Water Act. Those things prevent clean water, essentially, under that act. Best management practices is it's a technical term. I know it's not, super, it's not a scientific term, but it's a technical term through EPA. And what it describes is stormwater capture and treatment, design, control items, and they call them best management practices because that's the collective words that they've used to capture them. So a catch basin with a 4-foot sump is considered a best management practice in certain instances, as would be certain swale designs. So it's not just management practices. Best management practices speak specifically to items within a stormwater collection and distribution system design that meet certain criteria for total suspended solid removal, pollution removal, nitrogen, and those kind of...
But all those things we currently have in
correct.
place. That is our law right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're good. Thank you. All right. So 19 just repeals it. 15 seconds, we've got no stormwater, then we'll get to 20. All those in favor of repealing Article 9, the zoning bylaw in Article 19, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Now 20 puts the stormwater back in, but now under the town's regular bylaws. Anything else we need to discuss about that? You know, there's that small change just to make sure that everybody's grandfathered. Okay? Selectmen, your recommendation?
I didn't make the motion.
Don't make the motion. I'm so ready to go.
I move that the town vote to amend the general bylaws by adding a new section, chapter 204, sections 1 and 2, with the text as printed in the warrant.
Is there a second? Selectmen, your recommendation?
Recommend approval.
Finance.
We find no direct financial impact.
Okay. As printed in the warrant.
With the additional language.
It is printed.
That was printed.
Yes, okay. It's already in the warrant. Okay, everybody clear? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously, and we are done. Don't speak.